turned into chaos. We started to call them hunger. Their gluttony was unrelenting, and they targeted us.
Yes. That's why Tego fell.
Tego needs help.
No. Escape. Tego.
Some teams have things they have to work on. Some teams they have to really worry about the high stakes, and some teams they're chilling because now we are here over at the APAC qualifiers 2024 of the PUBG Global Series. This is phase 2. I'm Tashmin alongside Streamed. It's our first time casting together, and I am extremely stoked.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to get into it. I think we'll be treated to some good action as well, because day 1 was great, the play-in stage as well. While I was doing this with Contra, we had 3 days of fantastic action, and we got treated to a lot of that on day 1 as well. Every team on day 1 was playing very, very, very conservatively, which is unlike the APAC region. They were very... I suppose they were playing stock standard PUBG. They were playing to the absolute best of their ability, doing their best to survive, make it to the mid game, make it to the late game. And yeah, off the back of that, we got some very exciting games.
Yeah, and I think we also found the return of so many teams. I think, you know, hearing your cast with Contra, excuse me, some teams have already made it to PGC based on the PGC points, but some of them are on the brink of barely making it there. Can you walk us a little bit through that?
Yeah, I can do my best. I've been trying to keep up with the PGC point situation, the PGS point situation, because if you make it to PGS 5 and 6, say you're one of the teams that qualifies through to PGS 5 and 6 from the top 4 of this tournament, then you can gather a bunch of PGS points, and that will have a chance at guaranteeing you straight through to PGC. If you're not one of those teams, then you need to gather PGC points through making... I'm just getting the best placement you possibly can in this qualifier, and then potentially you can make it through to PGC off the back of that, whether or not, you know, indifferent, depending on whether or not you make it to PGS 5 and 6. So say for a team like 𝐴𝐴rena, they are just out of the cutoff for PGC right now, so a good placement in this tournament might guarantee themselves a spot at PGC. We are on the 26th of September. We have a day break after this for everyone to reset and VOD review, make sure they are set for the final 2 days. But yeah, we're approaching crunch time.
Yeah, approaching crunch time is definitely it. Now, let's talk a little bit more about what we can expect to see for today. I mean, we know about the prize pool already. We have the prizes of $80,000 prize pool total, where we have an MVP, Eagle Eyes, Grenade Master, Field Medic, and Best Voted Moment. Now, coming back to my question to you is that, you know, like teams like 𝐴𝐴rena who are on the brink of not making it, are you actually seeing any changes in how they play?
It's unfortunate for 𝐴𝐴rena because in the play-in stage, they were one of the teams alongside Buriram that had to warm up into the lobby. They were struggling to figure out how the lobby played, and I off the back of that, struggling to figure out how they should play, right? And so after day 1, it's difficult to determine whether or not they are doing something wrong with their playstyle, whether they're playing their own game or whether they're trying to adapt to the lobby. It's difficult to try and figure out, but we are unfortunately in a very similar situation to the play-in stage where 𝐴𝐴rena haven't really warmed up into this lobby as much as you would expected them to. Given their performances overseas recently at PGS 3 and 4, they're coming back into this region with some very valuable experience and some very high international placing. So you would expect them to be in that top 4, if not a favorite, to take the first spot other than Cerberus, and it's just been quite difficult for them. So I'm hoping that they do adapt their playstyle. I'm hoping that they do change their playstyle coming into day 2. It would be a big mistake for them to not have looked back at the VODs from day 1 and figured out what they need to change.
Yeah, and tomorrow is also that day off. You did mention some cut-off time where people, you know, you can go for a VOD review, you can really figure out what went wrong, and that's exactly what these teams are going to be doing. But my question is, as we go into the final 2 days later, are we going to be seeing a big change in how teams play? Would there be a change in drop spots? Would there be a change in rotations, you think, just to catch people off guard?
I think obviously when we get to those final 2 days, we are going to see teams who have vendettas or agendas, maybe rivalries with other teams in the lobby, and you know they don't want them to make it overseas. They don't want them to get to PGC or PGS 5 and 6. Yeah, we're going to see.
That is rough, actually. Like,
Yeah,
think about it. Like, you are getting, you know, blocked to making it to the end by a team who has nothing to lose because they're not making it.
Well, either that or they are making it and they're stopping you from getting any closer to pushing you out of the points. Say Cerberus is in first place and they don't want T5 to make it to PGS 5 and 6, then they can just spend the rest of their games griefing T5
because they're so secure, right? Already in that making it there. You know, with that, you know, I think as a pro player before, have you done that before? Is it something that players actively do?
I've done it, and I've had it done to me. It is fantastic when it works out for you, and it is incredibly annoying when it happens to you. But yeah, I mean, it's just the way that the point scoring in PUBG works. Placements on the leaderboard are valuable. It's what determines qualification. It's what determines a bunch of money. And if you can stop people from getting any higher placements on the leaderboard, then why wouldn't you?
Oh yeah, that's true. Now, for now, speaking of points here, we have the total leaderboard happening where TE is currently at the very forefront with 64 points ahead of FW. I don't think it's too far ahead. I think these two are pretty much neck to neck. But at this situation, we've seen games where, you know, some teams can just bring maybe a total of 20 points over, just really surprise us. So how does that work? How does some teams have that moment where they can get like this bombastic style play in one day and just go completely zero on the next?
Yeah, it's the nature of PUBG. It's the nature of figuring out the lobby. It's, you know, individual players, whether they're on point or not. One bad call or just a few bad calls can determine the outcome for the rest of the night. And confidence and momentum is so big when we're talking about competitive PUBG. So, for example, yesterday, the Expendables started out with a win. They had a fantastic, really great win on Erangel to start the day, and that momentum and confidence carried it through the rest of the day. And they had a second win at some point on later in the day, and they topped the leaderboard after that initial win. So confidence, momentum, incredibly, incredibly important. We're waiting for those teams below TE and FW to have that kind of game, have that momentum, gain that confidence, and make a push for that top four.
Yeah, and I think that it's really hard because I think you did mention how teams take some time to really warm up. But with the current format is kind of short, you don't really have that luxury of taking maybe 3-4 maps to just really feel yourself, because by the time that time happens, you're already changing up to the next map as well. And I think then you already have to adapt to the next few maps as well as that as well. So let's talk a little bit more about this VOD reviews and stuff like that, right? Do you think there are teams that actually just prepare for like maybe 1 or 2 maps and just hope for the best for the rest? Or do you think like it's something that they try to kind of divide all their time doing?
I think obviously you're going to spend more time doing research on Erangel and research on Miramar, because those are the maps you played the most in competitive PUBG at the moment. And then the new map is Rondo. And so people will have at least spent a good amount of time when it came out studying that map to try and get ahead of everyone else. And maybe as the months have gone on, they've spent less and less time looking at that. 𝐏𝐆𝐒 is a map that, because it's, you know, only played once in a night of competitive PUBG, you're not looking at it too much, and I think it's also a map that people will mostly know like the back of their hand now. Maybe not as much as Erangel or Miramar, but it is one of those maps that you are mostly confident on. I think if you're going to spend any time doing any research, which I think this lobby has done, by the way, because it's everyone, again, playing the Phase 1 and Phase 2s very, very, very well.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be spent on Erangel. It's going to be spent on Rondo, which is the new map, and then you kind of just go from there.
Yeah, and I think for today we're going to be looking at 2 Miramars before we go ahead into 𝐏𝐿 as well as Rondo, finally Erangel, and then you are right, you can come back to that where these maps are mostly played. And I think for a while now we've had teams who just really are at the top when it comes to these maps, from Miramar and Erangel. Now let's talk a little bit about these 2 maps that are fairly less played compared to the other 2 here. For 𝐏𝐿 and Rondo, of course the homework will be done, but do you think these maps are just as important as Miramar, or will some teams just be like, okay, let's just do the minimal and try to get as many points as we can on Miramar? Or would you say that it would be like maybe like I would say a wild card moment when some teams really show us that they can bring the best on these 2 maps just for those extra points, because not everyone is as prepared?
Yeah, it's good that you mentioned that, because I think some teams are very confident on Erangel and not so much on Miramar, and then you can vice versa that as well. And so 𝐏𝐿 and Rondo become those tertiary maps where if you're one of those teams that really favors it, then the points you get on those maps are actually super valuable. If you're not going to have a great performance on Miramar, then you need to find a great performance on 𝐏𝐿 or a great performance on Rondo. You can rely on Erangel, of course. Everyone's going to rely on Erangel. Everyone's comfortable on Erangel. Miramar is also, like you said, a comfort map for some teams. But if you're not going to find performance and you're consistently falling short on 2 of the maps that you play, then yeah, you need to find that performance elsewhere, and elsewhere in this case is Rondo Ortega.
All right, so coming into this first map as well, I'm sure you've been following this whole week of all the action. Can you tell me a little bit about what we've seen so far? Just a little recap, plus a team that's really surprised you throughout these last few days.
Yeah, unfortunately, Tash, I would love to say that we've had a bunch of early action and a bunch of hot drops, because that'd be a great storyline to go through and something to spectate throughout the tournament, but we've had no hot drops. No one wants to drop early. No one wants to fight early. The only action we've had early is car contests. People will go for their hard spawn, and sometimes they get run over. That's the only early action we get, which is a big contrast to what we had in the rehearsal games. But they're just rehearsal games. I guess people were just TDMing, which is totally fine. Makes a bunch of sense. But I would have loved to see some hot drops. Maybe we'll get some more, as you said, by the time we get to the final 2 days, when people are intentionally trying to grief people out of spots. But right now, phase 1, phase 2 is super boring. Not many storylines there. The team that has surprised me the most, a team that's making me the happiest the most, actually, is the Expendables, the team in first, because they're a team that I think in the past have been very hot and cold. They sometimes just perform out of this world, and they've been overseas as well. They've done great things overseas, and then sometimes they're super cold. They don't qualify. They don't look like themselves. We've seen both sides of the Expendables. I really do truly love that I'm seeing the best version of the Expendables right now, and I hope that continues. The same could be said for FW. They topped the play-in stage, which I didn't expect. Maybe you'd put them in the top 8. I certainly would have going into the play-in stage, but to see them continue that performance from the play-ins into the final stage is also really fantastic to see.
Yeah, it's really exciting as well to see these changes in the names as well, because I think for a while now, a lot of word and mutters were all about Team Bliss, Buriram United, and seeing this change is just showing us that the scene is constantly evolving and growing as well, which is something that I'm very, very happy to see. Now, I think there was a lot of upsets, especially since EWC, since everyone was trying. I think that was the last one that you and I, as well as Contra, all casted together for phase 1, I believe. Yeah. So, I think a lot of these players are saying, okay, we didn't make it to Riyadh. Now is the time for us to really prove ourselves to make it to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia at the end of the year. Now, coming into this one today, I think now that we're seeing a lot of teams start to get warmed up, especially today, since today is day 3, do you think that day 3 should be the same as yesterday, or would day 3 be like the change that you expect to see, the hot drops, the exciting stories before we go for that reset?
Well, did you say today was day 3? Because today's day 2.
Day 2, sorry. Oh my gosh.
No, it's okay. I listen, day 2, I'm expecting the teams that performed middlingly yesterday, I suppose, the teams that you would expect to perform better, I think they're going to come into today and do better. I don't have any evidence
day
to
1
the
is
contrary.
sort of like the icebreaker, right? They're trying to get used to each other. They're trying to see how the rotations are like. And then after that, they go back and be like, okay, this is the Rubik's Cube, the puzzle. Let's figure it out. And then let's change it day 2. Do you think we're going to be seeing a lot of that?
I hope so. I really do hope so. I think Buriram started to warm up into the latter stages of the day yesterday. I think they're going to come into today's swing. At least I hope so. 𝐸-Arena is probably one of those other teams that we have yet to see warm up into this. T5 as well. They started to warm up, and so I'm hoping they can figure out that puzzle. I'm hoping they can put together that Rubik's Cube and come into today swinging. You said it was an icebreaker yesterday, and I agree with you. It was just the most lukewarm icebreaker I think I've ever seen in my life. These guys came in.
You are incredibly blunt.
I mean, I'm expecting these guys, given what we saw on the play-in stage, coming into the finals, I thought everyone was going to be fighting just as much as they were in the play-in stage. It was constant action in the play-in stage. And we came into the games yesterday, and it was like 64 alive after, phase 1 was closed in. It's
No
like,
way.
well, okay. Yeah, I mean, maybe 62 alive or something like that. But these guys are playing seriously. Like, they actually recognize that there's a lot on the line, monetary value on the line, PGS 5 and 6 on the line, PGC points on the line.
Yeah.
There's a lot to play for, and it's being reflected in their playstyle.
Yeah, and especially because there's not a lot. I mean, the tournament season is coming to an end already. If you don't make it, this might be the end, and then you got nothing to do for the rest of the year. And I think as players, you want to be able to keep active. You don't want that cold season where all you're doing is just scrimming, or perhaps not even paid, because you have to kind of look for a different org. A roster mania coming soon as well. So as we go down here, let me ask you a question. If you could make your own perfect roster, give me the names.
Out of the APAC?
APAC.
Out of APAC. That is too hard of a question, man. 𝐏𝐼𝐼, obviously. You have to have 𝐏𝐼𝐼. You have 𝐏𝐼𝐼, Tycon. Do you have Tycon? Oh, that's such a hard question, man. Oh no.
We can talk about it as the circle starts. We got so much time.
Oh, okay, 𝐏𝐼𝐼, 𝐾𝐿 maybe.
Okay.
You need an IGL, and I'm unfamiliar with most of the IGLs, so maybe. Okay, wait, no. Just off the top of my head, you got 𝐏𝐼𝐼, 𝐾𝐿, Nuren's is IGL, even though I think they stopped him IGLing a while ago because they had problems. I'm not sure. And then you go Dynasty.
Fair enough.
That's the 4 off the top of my head.
All right, so everyone, we can expect Extreme Esports soon.
Yeah, I just got to get some venture capital funding, and then we can put it together. It's rough, you know, esports winter. It's rough out here. I got to convince people to give me money to make my dream teams.
Oh yeah. Anyways, coming back into this game, the Expendables. You talked a little bit about them and how you were very, very, happy seeing them. Now, this has only been one day, of course. It was the icebreaker yesterday, and you did say they're very on and off. So, coming into yesterday, what did you see? Was it a lot of improvements, or do you think that consistency might be an issue?
I mean, historically, I think consistency has been an issue for the Expendables. The funny thing about the Expendables is if they're constantly on their game, if they're constantly on form, then there's no troubles at all. There's no worries. I think the Expendables, when they're playing to their best, then they're exceptional, and that's why they've qualified overseas in the past. That's why they're on top of the leaderboard right now. That's why they're one of the best teams out of Vietnam. The problem is, unfortunately, is that they're not always on form, at least historically, right? This could be the turning of a new leaf for the Expendables. Hopefully it is. I would love to see this version of them more often. I think they're one of the most explosive teams in this region, that's for sure. And coming out swinging on day one with 2 wins definitely proves that. So, yeah, I think there's no real problems with them other than the fact that historically they haven't been super consistent when it comes to the overall results. But if they are going to continue to be this on points, then we're not going to have any problems at all.
Yeah, and I think as well, it's so different when I was looking at the scoreboard for Phase 1 and Phase 2. Because, I think that a lot of time I was like, okay, SGD is just really surprising us. Bleed was doing pretty good as well. And then there were also the teams that made it to EWC that showed us a whole different story. Now, my question is, since all of these players are playing playing from home, and then EWC was a LAN, do you think there is that mental, I would say, struggle that we're going to be seeing from these players, as opposed from playing from home and also from on a LAN?
I think that's probably why we see a team like 𝐸 struggling. Is obviously the home environment is quite different to LAN. Some teams are much more comfortable when they're at home, and that's how you get the tagline of you're an on-miner, and then some teams are definitely more comfortable on LAN. It seems like 𝐸 are LAN beasts. Seems like sometimes even Cerberus do far better on LAN. I don't think there's any excuse though, unfortunately, whether you're comfortable at LAN or at home. Doesn't really matter.
You gotta suck it up.
Exactly. You have to be able to perform no matter what the circumstance is, and there is no real reason for you to not perform, even though it's online, even though, there might be a little bit of peak advantage here or there, ping involved, whatever, right? Name your excuse. It doesn't really matter. You still have to be able to pick it up and perform.
Yeah, I think, talking to some pro players, I think one of the hardest things I asked them was, do you ever feel like it's unfair when you have to play in an environment where you don't have ping advantage? Because I think that's usually the case, right? A lot of tournaments are now online before finally bringing the grand finals to a LAN as well. So I think a lot of these players, I love the mindset that these players are saying, because they said it doesn't matter whether there's a ping advantage or not. Like it or not, this is the cards we've been dealt, and this is something that we need to adapt to. We have to do everything it takes to make it to the end. Because at the end of the day, if they're not signed, if they're not given the opportunities, they have to prove themselves to show orgs why they deserve to.
Yeah, and I can remember when I was playing as well, sometimes performing online was actually much more stressful than performing on LAN.
Really?
Probably because you're trying to qualify. You haven't actually got to that LAN that you're trying to get to yet. You're just trying to qualify, and that can create a bit of pressure. And it's very easy to create excuses online as well. Yeah, I mean, like we've been saying, no excuses. You got to do it no matter what. You got to show your best self online or on LAN. And I mean, for a team like 𝐸 too, and Cerberus, I mean, and Buriram as well, so many players in this lobby right now have had countless international experiences, right? They've been overseas before, and so that is by far one of the most valuable pieces of experience you can have up against players in this lobby who haven't been to LAN. And it would be silly to say that LAN experience doesn't give you a buff when you come back home and get into an online lobby. There's an air of arrogance, I think, that
Yeah.
you should gain. You should have an ego if you've been to LAN and come back and start playing online.
You should, because I think it's something to boast. It's not easy. These qualifiers are definitely not easy. Granted, I would say the environments, the challenges that these players have to go through. Some players are not even signed. Some teams, rather, are not even signed, and they're just kind of like doing this out of their own pocket money. And I think, for me personally, being signed could be something that's exciting, right? You're getting that support to be able to compete and play full time and be able to, I say, ease yourself into a more playable situation based on what I've been talking to players. Because if you aren't supported, you're gonna have to maybe run a full-time job or something like that to support this hobby. But you know, coming into this one, Arena, you spoke about earlier, just puck shots, nothing left. But I'm quite surprised. I mean, you did say that it was going to be lukewarm quiet very, very early. I was not expecting it to be this slow. I was expecting maybe perhaps some stragglers early, maybe some pickups. But this is the first time we're actually seeing, oh, there we go, something happened as MML knocked down by 𝐏𝐿 and 𝐷 putting a lot of pressure onto him as well. So it's a three-way fight.
Just trying to third party it for the moment. Hitting some nice shots, but no flush to come out of it. MML does go down. SGD, we'll talk about them at some point, I'm sure, but they've already claimed that wildcard Malaysia slot. So there's a little less pressure on them, but they obviously still want to go through to PGS 5 and 6 if they can. And Hwang now literally stuck between a rock and a hard place. Ming's above him, he's on the rock. 𝐷 is over here staring at him, waiting for him to move. He knows that he's in that crevice. He's also just seen his head pop up.
Oh, that is
a nade
painful.
from Mings. Yeah, this is not looking good for Hwang.
Being sandwiched like this is not the best place in the world to be. His teammate not able to even really provide that support if he want to. So I think they're just trying to see if they're able to get some pickoffs or maybe just lure someone out. Get 1 point. Any point is actually really important in this situation. We've seen situations where, you know, making it to the grand finals or making it to the end is just 1 point difference. And that is heartbreaking.
Hwang's actually getting away with it. He might actually get away with it. Some backup from his teammate in Van Nye. He's run down the rock. SGD is also helping Hwang get away with it, whether they know it or not. 𝐷 is just not being allowed to peek this. He's managed to get off the rock and all the way down into safe cover.
Yeah, now a bit more of aggression on one end, but hold that thought as we come back here. Theorathon 5 with Buram United here, head to head. Had a lot of conversation about some teams from the same nations just sort of, you know, because of their rotations, because of their scrims, they tend to have these very similar, I would say, rotations and meet up with each other a bit early. As fans, that would suck, but as players, you do what you have to make it to the end. And for Ranger X, he's alone here. His teammates close by if they want to, but a dangerous game if you want to pick him up.
Yeah, they're kind of committed to this. T5 actually have a decent spread on this compound. Buram is the one that's trapped in, but T5 have yet to make a play. They have yet to wrap around and try get an opening here. It's just this weird stalemate. The utility's up, the smokes are up, and so no one can peek. No one wants to peek. T5 is playing this too passive for the space that they have. They've got the outskirts of the compound. They should be the ones aggressing on this almost and trying to find that opener.
Yeah, and I'm curious why, because they have a lot of space to work with. They have already thrown in the utility, but because Buram United is not wanting to take this fight or go out to them, they're hesitant. They have no clue where to look. We hear the sounds of the shot of the guns, but no hits quite yet. If anything, there is a bit of a flash, has to move away, but again, it's just throwing everything in the kitchen sink with no follow-up.
The T5 now deciding to leave too. Buram certainly will activate on this. Bit of a bait though. Ranger X is still here, Padampong's still here, Rossiter stays. It's just Flucky that's left. Buram will be cautious because they know that it could be a bait. This is a crucial moment in this fight. Does Dempsey spot Padampong? If he does, he's got a teammate there to back him up. It's a 1 versus 2. Flucky's got the backside angle now as well. Rossiter's been spotted. Okay, that makes Dynasty and his teammate a little bit more cautious here. They don't necessarily want to commit to this just yet.
Yeah. Very exciting. We've been waiting for quite some time for at least a single pick, but that's not happening. By one end, your player there, 𝐏𝐿, gonna find Zest over from AGG, knocked down already. They trade from the bottom side, very separated, but they do have these layers of crossfires happening, so perhaps a trade could happen. Perhaps they're able to take up space together. I really like when players have these protocols for that. And here we go, T5 finally putting in the pressure onto Buriram United as Buriram United didn't want to stay inside and play their games anymore.
Nah, Buriram got out of there. Nah, they left 𝐾𝐿 though. Wasn't expecting to see him still chilling inside this compound. He's acting as a bit of a bait, but he's alone. And there's all 4 a T5 right next to him. And so this could work for him if he catches 1 or 2 players out, but if all 4 T5 stay around that compound, that is terrible. And as Buriram rotate in, they rotate in straight to SGD. Mings picks up 1. Dynasty being shot from afar. 𝐾𝐿 finally decides to activate, saving his teammate. But he's all alone here, as I mentioned.
Oh, yeah, 𝐾𝐿. I think he knows there's 1 knockdown already. He's trying to make sure there's no one around as SGD. They're going to be happy with another player from Buriram United in their pocket. Nate connects, takes 1 player down, aware that Fluky is close, and 𝐾𝐿 says that's fine. Just move out of the way, but at the cost of so much HP as Rossi coming on one end here, trying to see if we can get a pick off. Playing so closely, the sprays are true. BRU goes down as T5 remains alive. Again, very strange start, but unlucky because they didn't have the time luxury because the circle was pushing.
Yeah, it's very disjointed from Buriram. 𝐾𝐿 was obviously stuck there, couldn't leave, and so as soon as his teammates left, he was, left to his own devices, and that just didn't align with what Buriram actually wanted to do, or the situation that they ended up with. SGD ended up kind of gatekeeping them from the zone, and Buriram just get spread far too thin. T5 take full advantage of it. So well done from T5, SGD and T5 combined. Buriram go out. One of the teams that we're certainly looking at to remain consistent. I said they warmed up towards the end of last night, but they need to stay warm if they want any chance at qualifying into that top 4. We were mentioning last night how the play-in stage was top 8 qualified, but
yeah,
the final stage is only top 4, and that is far harsher than top 8.
Yeah, I mean, stakes are high. You do whatever you can, Asbane. Quick to find 1 down. SGD has been active this map. They aren't necessarily rotating either. They've just really been holding, just taking their time. But it seems like everyone seems to just pass by their peripheral, pass by their area. And they're so quick to react off that. And they're getting so many points out of it. And speaking of points, Latte, 1 knockdown already from QC. As if for AG here, Tycon on the high ground. Some pressure put into some rotators, but nothing picked up quite yet.
This is the style that SGD should be most comfortable in playing. We saw them in the play-in stage being very active, like you said. And so no reason for them not to continue that going into day 2 here. Cerberus under pressure. 𝐿_CONFIRM have rocked up, but they are weakened. Only 2 inside the compound right now. Some good utility should stop 𝐿_CONFIRM from pushing any further. Nawaja tries to get something done, assisted by Latte. If this is how Cerberus's fight is going to go, 𝐿_CONFIRM certainly have an in.
Hasaki as well, forced to move out of the way. That utility put down, just buy him some time. But he need to be quick. Sololzi making his way toward him, but QC is right at his heels. There is a bit of smoke cover just to buy some time. The question marks come through here as QC rushes up forward, knows exactly 1 is close. Noarda is as well close by, but Sololzi not able to survive quite yet. QC showing a lot of aggression. Finds Hisaki as well. It's all about just dwindling down the numbers. The other 2 members of Cerberus, I think they're just trying to figure out whether or not they still want to take this fight or move out of the way.
Cerberus lose 2 off the back of Latte's knock, a player that wasn't even involved in that fight. And now Cerberus have even more troubles to deal with. The Expendables rock up and they both go down. There's only 2 now up for the Expendables. 𝐿𝐼MAS alone to defend this compound. 𝐷uckBy is actually there, coming up on that lower ridge, and the Expendables fall in an instant. 𝐼MAS and 𝐷uckBy combine, a little bit of assistance from KM99, and the team on top of the leaderboard is out in 15th.
Sometimes you have these teams that go very aggressive early, and it gets very exciting, right? But there's a lot at stake when you go out too early. Yeah, if you get a lot of pickups, sure, that's great for you. But going out 15 with only 2 picks is not the way you want to go out of. Aggressing all around, like Wukao in trouble. Takes a lot of damage from TEM. Going to be holding down this compound very, very securely. Takita on the outside, Insight is here. And I think one of the biggest, I would say, eyes that I've had for this team has always been Insight. Goes stealthily inside of the compound, finds 1, tries to go for another, not happening. TM trying to go for that pickup once again. Strength in numbers, as they say. But with Team Bliss all around and no information, it's going to be incredibly hard. As the circle will pull toward the northern side. 𝐏𝐶𝐁𝐆 is here. What was a nade, I believe? No, a smoke. Excuse me. Just to give a little bit of space, deny that vision. But it's silence all around, hoping to bait the other members of TM out, but no one is crossing out in front of their peripheral vision.
TEM need a big night. Bottom of the leaderboard, 5 points. They need something miraculous if they want any chance of qualifying through to PGS 5 and 6, but it doesn't look like it's going to be the case in game 1. Caught in, a long engagement here with Team Bliss. Difficult for them to step out and take Team Bliss out, and it's kind of equally as difficult for Bliss to push in. FW from Church is third partying this entire fight. Another instance where we just see a team that has no engagement in the original 4 versus 4 getting involved and making it difficult for anyone to win either fight convincingly. Jervis rocked up to that shack, but he will almost certainly fall in an instant. Latte's got another quick double onto Reluctant Squad as High-Mass pushes forwards with the nades.
Yeah, Latte as well has been very, very active today. See a lot of pickoffs all around. Skirmishes starting to finally happen.
He's got 3.
He's just been playing that angle so very well. Playing off that information and just hoping that people just push up toward him, and they do. Now, Thanadol from Day Trade in trouble. Pushes up forward, takes a lot of damage, wins that one against 𝐏𝐿. Let's go for the heal. Surprised that he decided to do that all out there in the open, but Unique will go down as Norin's here, holding out that angle. Good spray, takes one out. Jedi. That's a painful shot to the face.
So sharp from Neurons as well. Knew exactly where they were going to peek, where they were coming from. Please take me, please, with basically nothing. Stuck in the zone. Jedi certainly not going to get rezzed. It's just Latte. He's been on fire this playing stage as well. Had a couple highlight moments yesterday, but a massive job in front of him. Q confirm. I like how they've been playing this as 2. Raze hits a spray from the ground into the middle of the air. Bleed. As they arrive on the emergency parachute, they've lost 3. That's usually something you use to get out of danger, but they found themselves in total disarray. They lose 3 on the emergency pickup. And what else do they have left?
Day Trade with only a broken vehicle as cover. So low. Saw some shots to a flash. Could nearly get taken out. Wouldn't be surprised if he did. QC already getting active, taking up that space. Gonna be happy just to still confirm that. Clean round and flash. Unfortunately, he blows himself out there. Not too sure what happened.
We've seen far too many team damage instances so far. Lots of TKs, lots of self-knocks. It's always a good time. A little bit of a laugh. Q confirm move into the bowl. Circle continues to shift to the west. Team Bliss, fantastic spot. TEM Entertainment at the mercy of Team Bliss inside that bowl across the road. Forest will have to move in, but they still maintain the high ground. T5, fantastic position for them as well. A couple teams very happy with that shift, but anyone to the eastern side has a lot of work to do. Akita, DMR from long range, this is his happy place. This is where he feels most at home. Unfortunately, he's only got a 4x and 8x. Would be super ideal here. And 125 6 out, that's just not enough for a guy like Akita. You need minimum 300. And then maybe Akita can do some insane things. Either way, Team Bliss will be happy with Church. TEM Entertainment across the road shouldn't be that big of an issue for them. TEM can't move. So as long as Team Bliss keep eyes up across the road, then they should be okay to survive here in Church.
Yeah, I think Team Bliss is one of those teams that always have been a little bit more quiet early conversation with their players. They do say that they do take some time to figure things out, and it's been very harsh on them because of the format. It doesn't give a lot of time for them. Latte finally taken down by the zone. As Take Me Please eliminated already. Now, coming back to what I was talking about Team Bliss here, I think the conversation for them is that they wanted to be able to go a little bit more aggressively, take out more space a little bit more early. This time around, it's been more about survival. Now, survival is definitely something that 𝐏𝐆𝐒 is not able to do. This aggressive push from Cerberus will be the end of him. So, these teams that going aggressive early are finally punished in the end, because for how long they've been holding on to this area, and surviving might be a little bit hard because the resources might be a little bit more scarce and dwindling toward the end of these rounds and circles.
Oh, Q confirmed lose Noadra on rotation, just leaves Chexing up alive. He's got a 1v1 to take before he even thinks about taking the fight to Forest as well. Teddy, the lone survivor on bleed. They're just taking pot shots at each other right now as Forest try to figure out what their next macro play is.
Oh,
𝐏𝐿 finally wins that 1v1. Down goes Teddy. Gives a little bit more room and space for 𝐏𝐿 to work with, but again, still at the mercy of Forest.
Forest has so much space to work with. The high ground in their favor. And it's open ground as well. It's so hard for players to just hold down the fort because there's like, what, 2-3 teams in front of him just now before one went down?
Yeah.
And 𝐏𝐿 gets a knock onto Tanawat on the other end, but Forest holding on to this high area, but, you know, eventually the circle will push in. They need to go forward.
They found a little crevice, a little spot in the zone. 𝐸 lose 2. T5 popping off in the kill feed. FW happy to just sit in the southern side of colors here and stare at Forest as they enter the zone. Forest actually find themselves in a much worse position than I thought. I thought they'd have much more, just better terrain to work with, essentially. And I thought they'd be able to keep their high ground, but that's not the case. They're all huddled up in a little corner on the side of the zone, and that one doesn't help them either. In fact, it helps basically no one other than Tem, Bliss, and T5. No one else is inside that zone. There is lots of opportunity on the line here for those teams on the west.
Surfer's unfortunately taken out as well. We saw a little grade of aggression there, but Team Bliss, this is where they start to get really active toward the last few circles. They go aggressive, they wait on the side of circle, they hold on to a high ground. This is where you mentioned before, Akita just great with those headshots, and then you have players like 𝐿𝐿𝐻 as well as Insight, great at just, again, Insight will like go inside a building perhaps, go for a scout on his own and still be able to hold himself. Regardless here for Flash, FW with 4 kills in the bag, they are just looking to see if they can get some stragglers getting into the circle itself. As EA here, as you mentioned, a hard place for them to rotate into. Not only is it a very big area, yes, you can sort of do a wormhole with those smokes, but with players just putting in that pressure in there, you have no clue if a stray bullet will just quickly just hit you.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what the play is for 𝐸 here. I'm also trying to figure out what the play is for AGG and FW. They have easier plays to make, but 𝐸, where do they go? What do? They can park themselves up in that bowl just to the west of AGG, but the problem is they have to get there first. And like you said, I don't really think they're going to make it there without taking some casualties. 2 knocked on their rotation. That's the first smoke wall that they have to make. They've now got another one that they have to make just to get into the zone.
𝐿𝐻 as well as his teammate there finds themselves against Forest, and meanwhile on this end, EA, I'm surprised at how long they've been taking cover behind this broken vehicle. And now finally they're just getting pushed and they're in trouble. The amount of teams toward the eastern side is phenomenal. You guys are gonna have to take a 3-way, 4-way fight just to get into the circle. And even when you do, you have TEM who's ready and watching on the other end of the side as Scappy goes down there, 𝐏𝐿𝐻 is here, and Team Bliss, look at the amount of space they are able to play with because of the high ground they're holding on to. Yeah,
Bliss in a golden opportunity here. Easy to throw it away, don't get me wrong. You can get super aggressive like Insight's doing now, and if you overextend, peek into that bowl, get knocked, I don't think you're going to get rezzed. Luckily, he's combining with 𝐿𝐻 from across the road. Nades go into Forest's bowl. That one looks like it's on the money, and it is. Baron down, Scappy flush, just 2 up now for Forest. Or 1 up, sorry, in the form of Olympus, and Insight's backing off. No more damage util for him to expend. Most likely the same situation with 𝐿𝐻. And again, they don't want to overextend. This is such a huge advantage for Team Bliss that they really do not want to throw away. T5, the other team, with a fantastic spot in the zone. Finally, 𝐸 fall. A long time coming. They survived for eons, it felt like.
Yeah,
using just that one car.
They shouldn't have survived, but they did. It's so shocking at this point. Coming up forward here, Team Bliss. Just now it looked like for Forest, they were looking happy with the high ground, as you mentioned, but they're forced to go forward. And Team Bliss has a lot of area, how they have this like one sort of formation playing off each other with the high ground. It's so good because all they have to do is just knock down the players of Forest. But my question is toward Team Bliss is, how are they able to just go up north to get into that circle? Because they have to go down this terrain. Olympus goes down. Insight finds one of his own toward 𝐾M99 as well. And he takes a fair bit of damage. All eyes on them. They're in trouble. But 𝐾M99, Team Bliss, secure that point.
Any knock that Team Bliss take now just delays their next play by a few seconds. And those are valuable seconds that Team Bliss cannot afford to use. So a knock like that is a little bit more costly. If Akita went down now, it would be even more costly. Insight flushed out. He didn't even get rezzed on top of that unplayable. There is a gap to the west that Team Bliss can use. They can drive their cars down that dirt road and towards the western side plateau. But I don't even know if 𝐏𝐿 and Monty have cars to work with, or whether that rotation's reliable for them to make. I think they're just going to stagger zone and make that play as late as they can. I can see a car behind 𝐏𝐿. There's 2 cars in that bowl, in fact. So Bliss do have a play. How good of a play it is yet to be determined. The camera's above exactly where I'm thinking Bliss are going to play. The terrain is definitely tilted towards T5. But they're going to have to use those cars for cover and use them well. Team Bliss just sent it straight off the unplayables, though. 𝐿𝐻𝐻 goes rolling down and flips the car as well. He is not going to survive this one. Car on fire, stared at by the entire server. I think it's over for 𝐿𝐻𝐻.
Yeah, unlucky. And T5, the team that we were questioning in the beginning of the game about how quiet they were, they seem to be the one that's having full advantage of the circle. Takes out 𝐿𝐻𝐻, happy to have 1 more point in his pocket. And they start to get active. You want to win this, you have to be very, very careful on how exactly you're controlling the zone. Crossfires perhaps to make sure that you're not only watching each other's backs and play for trades, but also to make sure that no one can cross into this area. Now Tycon moves out of the way, his teammate is close by, but circle not entirely in their favor. This circle has been quite, I would say, difficult. It's been ping-ponging to the left, to the right. It's been so hard for players to really pinpoint where exactly they want to hold and where exactly they want to play. Low ground for them as well, and Flash, they're going to be happy. FW, excuse me. They're going to be happy with just throwing those nades down, hoping that one just rolls up to another, taking in chip damage perhaps, but they're staying very, very strong, and once again, T5 with that advantage.
We've got 4 teams and 4 quadrants, and there's a single team in every single quadrant of this zone.
Ooh,
nice nade from 𝐷𝐿. Tycon down, but certainly not out. FW looking to make that push. It's a very weakened 𝐴𝐺𝐺. It's just down to 𝐷𝐿 to stop this offense, and I don't think it's possible. The drive-by is successful. Down goes 𝐴𝐺𝐺. In the meantime, those 6 sacks goes a little bit too far, straight into Rossiter's line of sight. They lose 1 on that breach.
Aggressive all around. Every single team has lost some members. No one's really staying really healthy so far. Whether it be stragglers, whether it be rotators, they're taking a lot of damage. Now, the only team, as I mentioned before, inside that circle is T5. FW and Team Bliss, if they want to get inside, they have to take these fights, or they need to isolate these fights and not allow T5 to play off each other. And I think this might be the case, because the other 2 members, because T5, only 2 members left, they're playing toward the left side and right sides of the circle. They can easily be isolated, and they have to deal 1 player toward Team Bliss and 1 player toward FW. It's going to be a hard hill to climb.
Let's have that bowl to play with. So worst case scenario for them, they don't really need to fight. They can just dip themselves down and guarantee themselves a 2nd place. I don't see a world in which FW get into this circle, being stared at by Flucky, being stared at by Bliss. Rossiter has that road cross as well. Incredibly difficult for them to make this one. We might just end up with that T5 versus Bliss 2 versus 2, and then you obviously look to Flucky with that high ground advantage, Rossiter with that very long angle across the road to push it over the line for T5. And then the individuals of Bliss will have to perform. FW smokes up in the middle of the road. Emergency or foldable shield, sorry. The ball's on Raze. He just can't get it done though. It's too difficult. Had to make that cross. Stands in the middle. Don't know what he was expecting to happen. Obviously didn't have smokes to work with, just the foldable shield, but he steps out of cover and gets taken down.
I love the way that Fluky has been playing with that terrain. He's just waiting for the right possible moment, moving and kind of weaving in and out of the area. As Monty finds himself toe-to-toe with 𝐷𝐿. No shots hit quite yet, but there is his teammate just to give him a little bit of space to play with. Prones up and down, finds nothing. For Team Bliss, they're playing this very slowly, making sure that they're not being hit by the zone, but still staying alive quite yet. Spots the back, puts in quite a bit of damage onto him, but 𝐷𝐿 still very much alive. Unmovable force indeed for him, as 𝐿𝐻𝐻 is trying to see if there's any openings quite yet. He's found 𝐷𝐿 on one end, but not quite enough, or not close enough for him to play, and 𝐷𝐿 goes down to the zone. So it's going to be finding a Team Bliss head-to-head with T5.
2v2. Can Monty get to this rock and use that to take the fight towards T5? Both T5 members on the low side of the road here. Monty's the only one looking that direction right now. 𝐏𝐿 is worried about the other side of the zone. This rock is so powerful for Monty. These peaks have to be true though. But T5 have that low ground to work with. arguably more powerful in this situation. Both a little bit blind. Monty has to get this kill. He can't land it. He's ducking back and forth. It's just now down to 𝐏𝐿. Put down very low. T5 claimed the first win of the night.
T5 played that very, very well. We were questioning their decision making in the beginning of the game, but I think their whole idea and sole purpose is that they have these protocols. How aggressive do you want to play in these zones? How aggressive do you want to go until toward the end of the game? And I think they have the same mindset as Team Bliss. And I love the fact that it worked out very, very well for them. Good protocols all around, understanding where to look and marking every single player. And that's a winner-winner chicken dinner for them for the first game.
Yeah, they definitely had to brawl a little bit when it came to the teams on the other side of the road. They had to take fights that they didn't necessarily want to take. They're probably amongst Bliss, combining with the other team in that endgame, that probably lost plays they didn't necessarily need to. I'm obviously going to hyperanalyze Bliss, just, you know, Australian bias, it is what it is, but Bliss definitely didn't need to lose 𝐿𝐸𝐸. They didn't need to lose Insight. Those were two mistakes that might have cost Bliss that win.
They were a bit too aggressive there, so I do agree with you.
Well, yeah, 𝐿𝐸𝐸 could have, maybe in the moment it's difficult to know, but I'm pretty sure 𝐿𝐸𝐸 could have driven towards that dirt road on the other side of Church and had a much safer path down rather than just sending it off. And then Insight obviously didn't need to get knocked on top of those unplayables, but in the end, Bliss found themselves in a very similar situation. T5 is probably the team that, even though they won the game, probably also won it quite stressed, having lost 2 players earlier on in the game. It's not the easiest to then pull off that 2v2 in the end, but they do it, and so yeah, full props to them.
Coming back to this one, I'm really liking the fact that some of these teams, they have, I mean, it's the same strats we've seen them play for many, many years. Like Team Bliss, they like to play a little bit more active toward the mid to end game. You know, they like to go for these high grounds and just hold on to it. And some teams, they're a little bit like T5, they're a little bit more active. They're like, okay, that's fine, let's go straight toward the middle area and try hold it for as long as we can. And you know, it worked out so well for them. So in my opinion is like, how are these players, not my opinion, but my question is to you, is that how are these players able to play this circle very, very early and get away with it?
No one's contesting them. You know, I think the way that circle panned out, shifting very heavily to the west, meant that there weren't many threats for the likes of T5 and the likes of Bliss to deal with. Unfortunately, the only threat that Bliss really had to deal with, if you're not a fan of Bliss, the only threat they had to deal with is 𝐴𝐻 Entertainment across the road, and 𝐴𝐻 Entertainment found themselves in that bowl that Bliss could easily exploit.
Oh, yeah.
And the similar story for T5, they found themselves on the western side, no one contesting them. Most teams were towards that east. It was absolute chaos over there on the east, and T5 were in a luxury position where all they had to do was clean it up. And so the circle definitely favored Bliss and T5 on that western side. That's not to say, though, that anyone from that east couldn't win that game. It certainly looked like a couple teams could have done it.
Yeah, and I think as well, it was a little bit more competitive as ever. A bit slower start, but I did like how aggressive all these teams went toward the middle of the game. It felt like there were skirmishes throughout the entirety of that game as well. But SGD, I think they're a little bit more unlucky. We saw them very, very active early, but I don't think it was their intention. Because it wasn't like what we saw from phase 1, where they're walking around and moving around the map and purposely looking for kills. Most of the time, they're just holding on to that one area, and as people rotated, they were getting these pickoffs. They were actually winning these fights. But unlucky for them, because they weren't actively repositioning themselves. Everyone knew where they were, and then one by one, they dwindled by numbers. So SGD wasn't able to make it out alive all the way till the end. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, sometimes that's the way it goes. You want to rotate into the zone, but teams don't really let you. You try to put yourself in a spot to scout, and then there's a guy in that spot. And then you have to take a fight, and then you lose players, and then there's time wasted, resources spent, and then by the time you're even close to the zone, it's nigh on impossible to make it in. You've had no time to work with. You're down to 2 players, and it's very difficult. So that was, kind of the story for SGD there. They kind of got delivered a few kills in the form of 𝐵𝐸, who obviously didn't really have time to gather much information as they were fighting T5 inside that compound, but SGD will certainly take them. MVP from that game, Flucky, and I think obviously quite deserved. His impact in that final 2 versus 2 was pivotal. Put himself across the road in a bit of a high ground position. Definitely wasn't too high, not as high as Church, but it was the power spot in that zone. Eventually having to fall back, but winning that 1v1 against Monty on that rock definitely gave T5 the win. Yeah, and I have to say that 𝐏𝐿𝐾, he was the kind of player that I think I would be I think a lot of players I think would be panicking if they were put in that little tiny position where they're not able to move, especially as 𝐏𝐿𝐾 was there. But he was waiting for the right pivotal moment to just really pop out his head and get those picks. And on top of that as well, he's bought so much time for his teammate to come a bit more closer to play with him. So I'm really liking the fact that not only is 𝐏𝐿𝐾 being able to just get these pickoffs that had high impact, but also the fact that he's able to hold his own while his teammates came to him. And I think that is something that I think we need to talk a lot more of, that you have so much trust in the player's ability to be able to pull these sort of like buy time moments off.
Yeah, well, in a 2v2 like that, you almost have to play as an individual, especially when the terrain is that wide open. It's not a close quarter fight. It's not a city ending where grouping up and trading is maybe the most optimal play. It's actually super open, and there's a bunch of different terrain spots that you can play. And yeah, you do need to rely on the individuals to be able to survive and play those terrain pockets correctly. And if you can't rely on the individuals to do that, then that's something you need to look at. 𝐏𝐿𝐾 obviously did that very well. Rondo did that very well on the far side, but it's one of those situations that you love it as a player because you're given a bunch of freedom. But if you're one of the dead teammates and you're spectating, it's like, well, there's a little bit of stress here involved because we recognize the pressure on both of the individuals.
Yeah, that's right. Now, coming into this one, I think that into this game, I was quite surprised at how competitive it was toward the end. We weren't seeing like a 3-man, 4-man team all the way to the end. It was 2 men, 2 players left.
Yeah.
You can tell that there's a lot of I'd say throwables already used as well, very early. I mean, it's a really big open area for them to play with. But for T5, understanding how to be playing with that terrain, understanding how to play the side of that little tiny hill has given them a lot of value, as you mentioned, the bowl, as you said before. And out of all of this, T5, a quiet start, they still managed to get themselves 18 points, but Team Blizz not too far behind with 14.
Yeah, you said it was super competitive, and I think the scoreboard reflects that. 18, 14, 12, 11. That's a very even spread of points for that top 4. There's a bit of a drop-off when we go down to 5th, which is Forest Gaming, but yeah, that top 4 was in the game the entire time, gathering points as much as they possibly could. T5 warmed up into the tournament at the end of yesterday, and they have shown up at the start of today. They now are kind of in that exclusive club of the top 3, where there's a gap between now 3rd and 4th.
That's
Before
huge
it was just
gap.
It is a massive gap. Yesterday it was 20 points at some point, but it's been dwindled down a little bit. And yesterday was 𝐹𝐵 that we started the day in that exclusive club. Well, now there's the 3rd member.
Yeah, I'm really liking what I'm seeing for all these teams. Now, coming into the rest as well for today, I'm quite surprised to see that, teams that, their names are up there. They're one of the teams that are so revered by the APAC PUBG community. Like Buram United seems to be struggling. Just now as well, we saw TEM, despite surviving quite long as well, didn't really get as many points as I expected them to. Now, coming into this one, that'll be the end of map 1 for Miramar, but there is still going to be another. So sometimes there are moments where what map 1 is the question mark of the day, because again, you've gone through the icebreaker on day 1, and now on day 2 you're starting to bring in their new strats forward, and it's about understanding how you want to execute that. But for now, let's see how the executions work as we go to a break. After this, Miramar once again for the APAC qualifiers for 2024 Phase 2.
World updates to 𝐏𝐿𝐾, some quality of life improvements for training mode, and a new survivor pass. All this and more as we dive into the Update 31.2 patch report. First up, we've made updates to some areas of 𝐏𝐿𝐾. The studio has been turned into an abandoned hospital, changing the layout, adding new buildings, and also a few more loot and cover spots. We also added a new bridge to the shipyard and improved the terrain around Hosan Prison, Songam, and Hosan to give you more strategic opportunities in this area. Next, training mode has been improved as well, based on your feedback. Training mode now has infinite ammo, recommended attachments automatically on weapons, and the ability to save and import your personal weapon and gear settings. We also improved the sound training area to provide feedback when a wrong target is hit. This update also features a brand new survivor pass, map bug fixes, and more. So check out the patch notes for full details. Update 31.2 is here, so load up your training gear, grab the new survivor pass, and hot drop back into 𝐏𝐿𝐾. We'll see you on the battlegrounds.
Hello everyone and welcome back. We are now back here in the PUBG Global Series APAC Qualifiers Phase 2, where we saw a bombastic first match where it was quite competitive toward the end. I'm Tashman alongside Extreme, your casters today, and we're going to be seeing our second Miramar. So before we go into the Extreme, what are your expectations for the second match?
Same as game one. That's the thing with this lobby so far, is I have no reason to expect it to be any different to how the first 7 games have played out. They have all played out so similar. Everyone has been trying their absolute best to fight towards the mid game, to survive towards the end game, and so the phase 1s have been pretty much identical, and I have no reason to change my expectations going into this one. I think everyone's going to be playing the best that they can. And we're still at that point in the tournament, right, where you want to get that buffer, you want to get as many points as you possibly can. There's a lot more pressure now, there's still a lot of stress, and so yeah, no reason for them to not play their absolute best.
You know, looking at these teams on how they've been playing, it's very push and pull toward a lot of these fights as well toward the end. It's never really been a full execute, so it's really hard to gain that momentum. You know, to gain momentum, you need to get that confidence, and to be able to get that confidence, you want to try to go for these few kills, just kind of chain it together. But we haven't been able to see that yet for any of the teams. Again, as you mentioned before, stakes are high, especially with the cash money coming up forward. Stakes are high with making it into, you know, PGC at the end of the year, as well as we go into Miramar. Let's see whether or not the adjustments for these players in the short break we will be able to see that or not.
That's the thing. When you look at this tournament, and then you look at how this tournament dictates what's going to happen for the rest of the year, not only are there individual prizes on the line, not only is there an $80,000 prize pool on the line, but there's also PGC points on the line, and there's PGS 5 and 6 on the line. So even if you're a team like SGD that doesn't have to worry about PGC anymore, there's still so much stuff that you can get just from competing in this tournament, including a trip to PGS 5 and 6. So lots to play for, and I think that's probably one of the reasons we're seeing everyone be very conservative when it comes to phase 1, phase 2. This is the lobby that I was talking about yesterday, how when I look at the teams in this lobby, I don't think any of these guys are afraid of fights. I don't think any of these teams are going to back away from a 4v4 team fight. I don't think any of these guys are going to say no to a third party. It's just when it comes to phase 1, not all bets are off, all bets are on, it seems. They are all just as passive as possible, just play stock standard PUBG, get a prio spot in the center of the zone, and then we can start to play a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah, and I think it's also quite interesting. Ew, that circle. Sorry. Coming, you know, coming into this one, right? Look at how many teams are toward Los Leones. This is one of the most aggressive, I think, situations I've seen there, because it's not all out inside of Los Leones itself. It's toward the southern side. It's toward a situation where, okay, everyone has to rotate downwards, and if you're in Los Leones, you are at an advantage that you can kind of like, you know, kind of secure maybe 2-3 compounds, have these nice little protocols and crossfires, high grounds set up as well. And anyone were to try cross through into the circle through Los Leones, you should be very happy with that. And this time around, very aggressive first pick here. And Huang F once again, I would say the early warrior. We saw that last game. We're going to see it again this game.
Kind of an isolated 1v1.
Yeah.
He wins it out. Very well done from Hoang. Similar spot as well. I don't know how he ended up in basically the same
that's
position.
what I said about Hoang. Just now we saw him all alone, sandwiched between 2 teams, and we were saying that it's a very difficult spot for him, but he still managed to get it out alive. And now he's playing alone once again, and he still gets away with the kill. At this point, I think there's a lot of trust given to him by his teammates to say, you know what, I know you'll be able to hold your own. You can win these 1v1s. You can isolate fights in a 1v2. Go ahead and go crazy. Go scout all you want.
Yeah. Either that, or they're very stressed as they watch him on the minimap, trying to win these 1v1s and get out of these situations. But he's managed to do both of them flawlessly so far. So, I mean, his confidence has got to be super high. If I'm evading danger like he is, then I'm feeling really good about myself. Armor. Yeah, he actually does. And he's also got a decent spot there on the eastern side of the zone. He'll have access to the southern Miramar, or southern Los Leones unplayables. That massive hill on the south of Los Leones that a lot of people are going to want to go for in this zone. Buriram included. But you can only really fit 1 or 2 teams up there. It can be quite claustrophobic if you try and fit more than that. Buriram, obviously, dead center. Access to resorts. they probably won't even want to go anywhere near Loss. Loss likely to become a bit chaotic as we go deeper and deeper into this game. It is a rotational spot, but it's also incredibly risky. If you go through Loss on Phase 2, Phase 3, if it's still an option at that point, then you are risking a rotation with basically no information. You can go through the streets of Loss and just get shot out by someone waiting at the bus stop, essentially. So, very risky, and that's gonna... I mean, I feel like people are going to want to opt to go for a Western rotation and Eastern rotation rather than risk going through Loss. If you are wanting to go through Loss, probably wanting to go through a lot earlier rather than later.
And the thing is, when you go through Loss, I think urban warfare is fun for us as viewers, as casters to watch, to to see. But as players, it's incredibly tough because not only do you have to clear every single compound as you cross through, you have no clue who's waiting in a corner, that's number one, with a shotgun. And number two, you have to try and see whether or not you can make it out, in a situation where you can make it out alive. And yeah, so I agree with you on what they're saying. You can already see that the players who had dropped inside Los Leones had already started to go southern side. And this is a very interesting predicament because I thought that some people would kind of hold on to Los Leones because you'd have no clue where the circle is going to pull, but they decided to leave the city altogether.
Well, I mean, Loss isn't going to be... Loss itself, the city itself, isn't going to be a spot where a lot of people are going to want to sit. It's the unplayables on the outskirts that are the most powerful part of Loss. Unless it goes into the city, then, of course, everyone's going to send it straight inside. But other than that, it's the outskirts of Loss that are really, really, really powerful. But this zone is far closer to the south than it is to Loss. And so... everyone going past the massive city, it seems, and into the priority compounds down there on the south. Buriram getting out of dodge. Dynasty suck in that little bowl just to the south of the compound. Reluctant Squad getting ever closer, but he manages to unstuck himself, get himself out of danger. Buriram, like I said, have resort. They don't want to give that up. Losing Dynasty early to Miramar terrain would not have been ideal. And I think smartly so, he sets himself up in that little ridge just so he can keep an eye on Reluctant Squad. Just so Reluctant Squad don't get cheeky, don't push towards Buriram. Dynasty's playing the terrain nicely.
It's very different just now. I mean, Buriram United just now, they found themselves in a fight. They didn't want to start it and instead moved out of the way and got caught off guard. This time around, they're taking matters to their own hands, playing a little bit more aggressively as Tycon catches someone using the vehicle as bait. That is genius. Very diabolical, but also genius.
That's Opon's going into San Martin for a car. He's going in there because he wants to get another car for Q Confirm, but not aware that AGG was staying inside San Martin that late. And to be fair, I probably wouldn't expect it either. With this circle being as south as it is, you can expect people are going to want to move a lot earlier rather than later. But AGG sticking around, and yeah, it nets them a kill.
Now, 𝐏𝐿𝐿 did get knocked earlier, as we saw in the kill feed. Now, I think Dynasty would be coming toward him trying to get that pick off because they know that Norins had also been knocked down in that process. The question is where the other members are. Gets the pick off. Good pick off here. His teammates is there just to avenge him if they want to. Has to make sure that the area is clear. Takes a bit of damage. Both players do. Now Dynasty finds himself crushed between two players. But it's Danadol to come up on top in that particular skirmish. Takes the fight. Goes for the revive. And then, excuse me, gonna find that last point on 𝐏𝐿𝐿, and they're gonna be okay, happy, 2 points in the bag for the cost of 1.
Now you have to start to wonder whether Buriram were getting a bit too greedy with the amount of space that they were taking, and whether they overstepped the mark a little bit. They had resort...
questioning if they wanted to come together for that pickoff instead of going alone.
Well, I think once 𝐏𝐿𝐿's knocked, they're all trying to regroup and save him. But Daytrade is much quicker to that warehouse than Buriram is, and so they are forced to back off. And Reluctant Squad actually recognized that Buriram left resort to go and help 𝐏𝐿𝐿. 𝐿𝐿𝐿 rocks up, but 𝐿𝐿𝐿 is also taken down almost immediately. So back and forth for Buriram. They do survive as 2, but not ideal. And yeah, you do have to start to question whether they got too greedy, whether they tried to split all 4 individuals and that just didn't pan out. 𝐏𝐿𝐿 getting knocked, he'll feel really, really bad for having to have his teammates come over to try and help him, because if he had obviously lived, then Buriram have an epic split and a fantastic spot for the rest of this zone, but that wasn't the case, and that's what you risk if you're playing as a solo.
Yeah. But that wasn't the case for Hoang F, who has surprisingly survived 2 encounters solo very early in the game. Now, coming back to Cerberus just now, I think it's a very... Cerberus's run in the previous map was very interesting, I felt. Because it felt like they were getting so many skirmishes throughout. It was back and forth. But surprisingly, in the beginning, the first skirmish they had, they only lost one player. And they still survived as a 3. And they were picking up points as they went throughout the map as well. Granted, they're not as aggressive as I wanted them to be. But they had these nice little protocols on what to do if they were going head-to-head against another team.
Yeah, I mean... losing 2 on that first fight from Cerberus last game is really, really, really rough. Especially because they had a really nice split and they could have had a fantastic game off the back of that. But then, yeah, we saw, I believe it was Forest, or no, it was the Expendable, sorry, breached the remaining 2 members of Cerberus. And yeah, I think their protocols were obviously very good. I mean, the defensive nade thrown out, the pre-grenade, the initial knockout of the vehicle, the Expendables is put on even footing within the first few seconds of that breach. And then they're... assisted a little bit by Forest, shooting their DMRs from a distance, but yeah, solid stuff from Cerberus. I feel like I'm kind of like you. I'm waiting for that game for Cerberus where it just feels like they have all the control, the circle's favoring them, all the fights that they're taking are fights in their favor. They just rack themselves up 20 kills and claim the win and call it a day. I'm waiting for that game to happen for Cerberus.
Same.
I feel like it's just a matter of time. There's too much talent on that team and too much experience on that team for it not to happen.
Yeah, I think that Cerberus is a kind of like a household name now when it comes to PUBG in APAC, right? How some of them are veterans, some of them are really good when it comes together. And I feel like this iteration, they've had some really insanely good chemistry, but the Circles gonna be ping-ponging. Today is a terrible day for Circles.
That is rough. Tem Entertainment happy with that one, though. As I said, 5 points on the board. Going into that first game, they need as many as they can get. They need a massive boost of confidence. So hopefully they don't throw away this circle because they are very, very, very fed. And yeah, everyone else scrambling to get a foothold into it. Majority of it is land, but at least 40 to 45% of it is water, leaving not much space for everyone else to play. Resort. Still the spot the Buriram resides. Happy to be here for the moment. I feel like 𝐏𝐿 before when he breached Resort was trying to pull a hero play. Like, guys, I got Resort. The Buriram have left. And then he just dies immediately.
Yeah, I think they weren't expecting them to be there still after, you know, the encounter and that fight. They were caught off guard. Yeah, Dido is going to be happy to put in a little bit of damage into Haisaki, not getting a pick-off out of that. Now, coming into this circle itself, a lot of teams have started to rotate inside. So, toward Puerto Paraiso, we're seeing Team Bliss sort of move in as well. And toward the full southern side is E-Arena.
You mentioned Bliss. They actually have a lot of freedom on that eastern side.
It's empty.
Yeah, it basically is. If they can continue going down that coastal road, actually, they find themselves a really nice compound to hold down. So as long as their protocols are in place and their fundamentals are good, Team Bliss can strap themselves in for a decent game. Other teams that are in a similar position are Take Me Please, Tem Entertainment. I mean, look at the split that Tem have. This is like a dream split. You've got a compound that's got high ground, and then you've got teammates in the low ground compound that you can very easily support. There's no better spot for Tem Entertainment to be. It's just really unfortunate that they've lost one already in this game, because a 2-2 split like that is very potent.
It is very potent. And they have nice little area to hold as well. Chicks spots MML, but his teammate is there to put a little bit of pressure just to allow him that space to just move out of the way. TE close by, TEM as well. And because of how small this space is, I wouldn't be surprised if there's going to be fights for these compounds already. Now, FOR in trouble, taking a lot of pressure from E-Arena. And E-Arena just now, they weren't... I think that, yeah, they got 6th place just now. But it felt like they shouldn't have been, I would say, surprising, just sitting there for too long. The thing is, it's just very unfortunate for them because they weren't able to just find a little bit more cover. And they were stuck there because so many teams were watching them. And this time around, I think it's going to be a redemption round for them. They're trying to survive a little bit longer, but with TEM on the other end having a nice little cross, if they're able to take one compound away from TEM, it will work out so much in their favor.
Yeah, you just gotta get the 100% information that there's only one player in that low ground compound, and then maybe Arena can make that push. But difficult to gather that information. We saw the lines of sight before he switched off, and they weren't too favorable for Arena, so they'll probably just sit tight for the moment. AGG are in such a rough spot that they have to leave the zone just to survive. 𝐶𝐸 and Tycon up towards those unplayable. 𝐶𝐸 now knocked. They're at on 5. Doing their best to control the northern side. They even have players out in the blue to make sure that they have full control over that direction. FW have rocked up. Forest now have to defend. And they're doing well enough, but not good enough. Olympus down. fighting back through the door. Baron can't get it done either. FW successful on this breach.
Very aggressive all around here as FW just running for his life. Trying to see if they can just kind of meet up and rendezvous with each other when again as Baron does go down. Now for Forest, they're a very interesting one because we didn't see them aggressive this early, but the nature of this circle sort of like forced a lot of teams to get a little bit more active. Start to get a little bit more reactive as well. Sizzy going for that rotate, KM99 finding nothing out of that. His shots unfortunately not hitting quite yet. Now coming back forward here, he's just going to be able to just play around, and his teammate is coming up forward. I think, no, they're actually looking to rotate out of the area. They don't want to take this fight, prioritizing compounds, and I think this is a good idea for many of these teams. There's not a lot of space to work with, so property, real estate is something that every team is going to try and prioritize.
Some pockets of terrain that people can play as well. Bleed probably going to look to try and find one of those. Teddy, headshot on rotation. Probably not going to survive through it. Orca in the last one as well. The fat kid, as you would say. And unfortunately, he might be the one to lose his life here. Man's down, Teddy's down. The rotation's just not paying off for Bleed. Orca does actually survive. Tricked, flushed out. It's so hard for Bleed to get into this zone, especially when everyone's looking at them from the north, from the west, from the east, and from the south. Very, very, very difficult. They have survived.
Yeah. I was going to say, this is very unlucky because, you know, coming into this circle, because it's just pulled all the way southern so early, it gives so much advantage to teams who are already there, already taken the compound and already ready to hold. And all they have to do is just hold, find the final members who are rotating inside, like Bleed. And unfortunately for Bleed, they got knocked down or attacked by 3 different teams as they were trying to get into the circle itself.
Yeah. They arrived too late, essentially, you're right. And everyone's already there, everyone's already set up. And vultures as soon as that rotation comes in. Happy to spam their ARs and throw as many bullets their way. Reluctant squad set themselves up nicely. This low ground compound is always so back and forth for me. You're in a spot that can have a really solid impact into the late game.
Yeah.
But until you get there, you basically have nothing to do. You are cornered on all sides by high ground that you can't really gather information on, and high ground that other teams can very easily control. So it's very difficult for a Reluctant squad to justify spreading themselves out just yet, but they're just going to be happy to wait until the end game.
As a pro player before, I think you mentioned before about protocols, about like how from circle 1 till certain circles you're playing passive. So what is the call usually to go a little bit more active, or what is the call for, like, how does the IGL really determine when they want to get active and when they want to just really play passive?
It should be more opportunistic. You're always going to be looking for a better spot and a deeper spot in the zone, but the opportunities will only really come if you're looking for them and if you can actually spot them. So very opportunistic. That should be the way that people are playing it, and I think it is. Noadra getting a little bit more aggressive, the new player on the Q-Confirmed roster. The nade's beautiful. 𝐴𝐺𝐺 on the back foot already. Couldn't even really get involved in this fight before Noadra had something to say about it.
And Noadra is just putting so much pressure into 3 of the players all alone. His teammates are close, but he's put in a position where he's able to just play alone. His teammates can take their time to rotate or really make sure that the whole area is secure before they go full all in for this fight. And it looks like 𝐴𝐺𝐺 in trouble. They don't have a lot of space to work with. They do have vehicles, and they're saying, okay, we don't have the resources to really take this fight. Let's leave. So now QC, they're going to be happy with this predicament. They got 1 pick off. And on the other end of the spectrum here, look at 𝐏𝐵𝐿 knocked down already for Khan. Now 𝐴𝐺𝐺 happy to get into the circle, safe and sound at least for the time being. And as much as we want to have like a water circle or an aggressive circle, the circle will not be going toward the water area. So I think for now, teams can start to figure out where exactly they want to hold. As for 𝐴𝐺𝐺, they're looking to hold this area in this corner, but it's SGD that's putting that pressure into them. Zest gets knocked down. Mings is not done quite yet. And Jervis, alongside MML, they want to take up the space. They want to rush forward. They want to take them down. And from United, Khan finds 1 pick off to his name. Tanadol goes down here as Buram United with 5 kills in the bag, despite only having 2 players.
That's the second one for Khan, doing it all up against Day Trade, and you said it, SGD happy to get aggressive on this 𝐴𝐺𝐺 position. They were so stuck in that bowl, and the nades finished them off. Mings gets 2, Jervis gets 1, 𝐴𝐺𝐺 not allowed to survive at all. A rough spot for them, and Khan continues to push, but Flash has that 1v2 done. Clean from him. Almost saves Day Trade's game. and they needed to. Down in 9th, their expectations will be much higher. It was a good effort from Khan, but not good enough to win the engagement for Buriram.
Truly. Reluctant squad is close by, but looking at 𝐸-ARENA, 𝐏𝐿 on the bottom side of this area. Nades all around just to put a little bit more pressure, deny them, push them out of the way, clear out the compound as well to see if anyone is there. Finds nothing. Now, FW in trouble. You can see them, two of them so low. 𝐿𝐷𝐾 goes down. Ming's not done quite yet. This is a very aggressive SGD. The usual way they play is always very fun to see that. But for 𝐸-ARENA, with only 1 kill, they want to go aggressive. They want to get more of these fights. And on the other end, FW goes down there. Monty will be the one to just really seal the deal, just to put those points into Team Bliss's pockets. But over on the screen right now, with Team Bliss, eyes onto 𝐸-ARENA, they're the ones in trouble.
This is a good start to the fight from Tem, and even better end to the fight almost from Tem. They've got 3 knocks onto 𝐸-ARENA. Now there's just 1 up. It's all down to Zizzy to try and win this 1 versus 3, and there's no chance of doing that. Thanawat has 3 kills in that engagement. 𝐸-ARENA get picked apart by the team dead last on the leaderboard. Those are very, very, very valuable points for Tem, and a confidence booster at that. Reluctant squad, they claim the compound Tem used to own, but Tem were happy to give that one up. No reason to fight for something when it isn't that valuable going into this next circle. But Tem, they're going to have to continue fighting. Reluctant squad getting ever closer. We saw Bliss with some fantastic third-party angles onto Tem Entertainment's compound. So if they start fighting again, Bliss are going to look that way.
It's a very interesting predicament seeing so many of these teams already knocked out so early. But the circle will be the reason for that, as 𝐷𝐷𝐾 will be knocked down. 𝐷𝐷𝐾 is the player that had the big game last one, but he's alone here. His teammates not in a situation where they can pick him up, so T5 shouldn't have a problem to secure him, as they're forced to watch their teammate get taken out of the way. Now, with the circle already restricted, T5, not only do they have to quickly secure this kill, they're gonna have to fight with the rest of TMP to get into the circle itself, and I am excited to see how the outcome is going to turn out.
I feel like this was a cheeky play from T5. There's a timing in which they took on Take Me Please to wrap the edge of the zone and get that pick onto 𝐷𝐷𝐾. I feel like that was Teraton 5 being very silent about it, not going super aggressive.
Wait, I'm so sorry to cut you, but if this actually hits, I swear to God, I will yell.
It could. I feel like we discovered yesterday it's got a larger blast radius than I initially thought. Drawn down, Tem Entertainment again with a good defense in this compound. Rogue has 2 with the Groza. No better gun to get it done in this kind of range. And now there's just 1 up for Reluctant squad. They had the element of surprise. They thought maybe they could get it done onto Tem Entertainment. They were weakened from that initial fight, but Rogue said no, not a chance. Back to the Panzerfaust now. It's still looking for that pick. 𝐷𝐷𝐾 hasn't let go of it. He knows how valuable it can be. It's just whether or not he knocks himself in this as well. Does he go up the stairs? Does he push up? Does he knock himself as well as get the knock to open up the fight? Or does he get this one at range?
He's not finding anyone yet. Everyone's just sort of moved out of the way. Now coming in 𝐻𝐼saki to find one onto Tanvu. And TE as well at least gets that trade, but not the kill quite yet. This fight has been going on for quite some time, but it's QC with that advantage. They have a little bit more of the high ground to play with as well. And now, as the other members of T5 try to rush into the circle itself, Ranger gets knocked down, as well as Pedret will be blown to smithereens. They're not quite done, but Q confirmed will be the one to lose that as they get eliminated at 10th. Meanwhile, the Expendables here find themselves in a predicament where they have to look out for CES, as well as another team over on the other side, which is SGD, who has all eyes on them. SGD very comfortable toward that middle area, in a situation where they're able to just really kind of third party if they wanted to. But the circle will pull in forward as Team Bliss that comes up on top.
Bliss are blessed in this game. Not a good time to let it go so far, though. I like how they're playing it on a macro level, controlling as much as they can. HiMass went down to 2 HP, and the Expendables fall. Bit of a cold start to the night from them. Maybe this is the problem we were talking about when it comes to the Expendables. Hot and cold. Very cold to start the night. The sword off through the door. Not enough. It's 𝐾𝐿 in the background that saves Rogue from having to continue that 1v1. I'm almost certain Rogue would have had it in the end, but 𝐾𝐿 steals it away, helping out his fellow man. Allows Tem Entertainment to survive deeper into the placement points, and again, so valuable. They could even overtake Q Confirm in this game.
They could. 𝐏𝐿𝐄𝐄 has always been that, I would say, that final layer. What the heck
Damn.
happened there?
SGD
See,
on 10 already.
Yeah, SGD very aggressive this game, and they seem to have taken whatever mistakes they did in the previous map and applied it to this. This is a very active SGD, a very, I would say, more proactive with how they've been moving around the area as well. And for some reason, SGD really thrives in these, I would say, unusual circles. They tend to really catch everyone off guard in these situations.
It's, if I'm a team and I'm sending it into a bowl or a compound that is adjacent SGD, I am very scared. They don't like any neighbors. They don't like anyone ruining their tempo, ruining their game. We saw what happened to AGG. T5 had no chance of coming in from that edge. So yeah, if I'm close to SGD, I am very, very aware that they are probably looking to push me. Cerberus, very cheeky on the flank. They've spotted Rogue. Should be a freebie if they can catch the right timing.
Trigger
Relying on high mass. Yeah, it's necessary in this situation. This kill secures them a placement point as well as a kill. +2 points for Cerberus in this game. Insight's been taken down. No flash. The solo. Insight certainly wasn't ready for that.
Monty is close by, so is 𝐏𝐿𝐄𝐄. Unfortunately, not able to protect Insight, but they still make it toward the top 4 here. Now, this is a very interesting circle because Team Bliss, they have the whole area of the southern terrain in their control. And Insight, and then right now, how they're playing this is that they have to really worry about the other teams. Like 𝐏𝐿𝐄𝐄 finds 𝐼mas as they're gonna try and see how they're gonna be playing together. TMP as well getting super aggressive, playing off the sound cues, making sure that Team Bliss is not in a situation where they're able to just 1v1. In fact, they're happy to take these third parties. High ground in their favor. Magvlos moves out of the way. Did bring in a lot of the attention of Team Bliss. Their eyes are on them. TMP close by as well. This should be a good one as they come closer. TMP is the one or the team without a majority of that space, but the circle will favor SGD, and Team Bliss forced to move down the terrain and find a way into the circle.
This is going to be rough for anyone that isn't SGD. They also have 4 men up, and the other 2 teams in the lobby have 3. Mings is up to 7 kills as well. He was one of my top players from the play-in stage. He had highlight after highlight after highlight. Him and Paint were just popping off for SGD. And it's continued. It is absolutely continued into the play-in stage. It is
so much space already. Look at how they're holding this.
Far too much. I mean, it's a really nice box in that circle. It's very difficult to see anyone getting into it, and Team Bliss are already angling towards Take Me Please because they recognize how hard it is to push towards SGD, so they're going to go for the lesser of 2 evils here. There's a ridge that they can work with underneath TMP. 𝐏𝐿's got to be really good on this DMR to either get a knock or a headshot or something that gives Team Bliss the timing.
That as well, but TMP, they're the ones with the high ground, so like it or not, if they're able to just really take out the one member of Team Bliss one by one, it'll be great. But one thing that I've really liked about Team Bliss is that they have sort of these layers on how they play, how they hold. Say that Akita goes down, 𝐏𝐿𝐄𝐄 is very active to just quickly react to that. Now TMP takes quite a bit of damage. Unique does that. Now as they move forward, 𝐏𝐿𝐄𝐄 hasn't stopped putting in that pressure. SGD, they're excited. They're very happy. Just keep quiet, just stay put.
The one rule in a situation like this is just wait for the other 2 teams to fight, and then we can get involved.
Third party is the name of the game.
Exactly. Team Bliss now throwing nades towards Take Me Please as they run off the top of the hill. This is firmly in the advantage of Team Bliss. A nade to start it off, Org Spray to get the second one, and now there's just one member of TMP alive in 𝐿𝐿 stuck inside that little 𝐏𝐿 shack. Team Bliss should be able to finish him off. This actually gives Team Bliss the time to look towards and pay attention to SGD. We are into that 4 versus 3.
Jedi is the one that's taken away from SGD. Now, Team Bliss is the team that has to fight for this circle. They're on the lower ground. It's going to be almost hard to just really push up, as you mentioned earlier, Extreme. Now, coming up forward here is about getting that information and the timing right. And usually what we see is maybe Akita or 𝐏𝐿𝐄𝐄 trying to go for a flank or so, but SGD has placed themselves in a position where even if they were getting flanked, they will be so easily to be alerted.
Team Bliss are playing this like they have no information, and it's because they don't. They haven't looked towards SGD in a very long time. They were very focused on Take Me Please. They haven't gotten any information on SGD. If they did, then you can imagine one of these Team Bliss players would be a little bit closer, a ridge across or a tree closer to SGD just to open up this fight, but they don't have that information. They haven't had that luxury in this endgame, and it's allowed SGD to basically surround them entirely. Also play the zone too. Bliss mostly out of it. SGD have full control of it. It's a matter of time now before SGD collapse onto Team Bliss.
Hard circle to play with, and Team Bliss has found themselves in a situation where not only did they have to rotate toward the southern side, but also find their way into this particular circle. SGD, excuse me, has hit the jackpot on this particular map. The circle has been blessing them so well. They didn't really have to move a lot.
𝐏𝐆 he's so desperate to see if he can get towards that low ground shack because he knows that it's such a powerful position, but as I said, no information. As far as 𝐏𝐆 is concerned,
yeah, he can't do the usual flank, right?
Yeah, as far as he's concerned, there's an SGD member in that shack or on the backside of that shack, and that is such a thorn in Team Bliss's side.
SGD has so much control of this area. In fact, they have a high ground. You can see Pain just sort of like jumping up and down. And they know that somewhere in these smokes are the players of Team Bliss. Yes, it's great that they have this cover. Yes, it's great that they can buy some time. But the problem now is, as soon as the utility depletes, as soon as they run out of throwables, what's going to be the play here? They spot out Monty already, but SGD, they don't want to take this fight first. They're trying to see if they can sort of isolate and not allow Team Bliss to play together, because that is the recipe for success for a team like this.
SGD seemingly have used most of their damage utility. There's one molly on 𝐿𝐵𝐻 and one nade on another player. A couple of other mollies in the back pocket as well, but they can't really stop Team Bliss from getting the advantage through the use of utility here. A few flashes will be... Yeah, they have. I mean, this is where Team Bliss just need to isolate one or two members of SGD, make that push. I think they've decided where they want to go.
Oh, that nade hit Pain straight in the face. That's the opening, and that is the moment where they want to go aggressive. Monty takes up so much space, being very careful, but SGD, they're ready. They know that they want to try and secure that kill. Rushes up forward there, Akita, another throwable forward toward 𝐿𝐵𝐻, just to buy a little bit more space and time. Pain, time, not on his side, as the other members sort of just fall one by one. Akita dwindled to only 40 HP left.
This 3v3 is starting to heat up.
Yes, they do. 𝐿𝐵𝐻 takes a lot of damage forward as well. Monty all alone. They're trying to find that timing. Team Bliss has found themselves in this predicament, but 𝐿𝐿𝐻𝐿 will be the next one to get knocked down here. Monty all alone. Not sure if they spotted him. They do. 38 HP left. And Menel putting in the pressure, and he gets knocked down as well. Team Bliss left to only one player left. Akita can't hold on. And the winner chicken dinner going to SGD.
Well, I mean, what a phenomenal performance by SGD in that game. I said it's very scary to place yourself next to these guys, and I think that shows you exactly why. They take care of everyone in their vicinity and rack up 15 kills doing it. Very difficult for them to lose that end game. They had so much control, and they earned that control as well. They didn't just stumble into it. They absolutely earned it through how they played that mid game. And unfortunately, victim in that end game there was Bliss. No information to gather, no space to maneuver. They did open up that fight in that 4 versus 4, so you got to give them props for that, but they just couldn't find that second opener. They couldn't find the advantage that they were looking for.
Yeah, I think the way that SGD has played that was honestly very smart. If anything, we only saw them just really go for those jump peaks to see where the other players of Team Bliss are. They weren't the ones to start those fights. They are waiting for Team Bliss to go for that opener. And as soon as one player did go down, Pain, they knew that, okay, they are desperate for that point. So let's use Pain as bait. Monty did take that bait. He rushed up forward trying to secure that pickoff, but look at the amount of pressure that was put in by SGD toward him, that he wasn't able to push forward, and then suddenly they had to just back off.
We saw a lot of good stuff in this game.
That was fun. That was a fun game.
I was thoroughly entertained by that one. I feel like I rarely get to see endings in the southern terrain like this. It's plays like this that SGD made exactly what you see in an endgame like that. It's a lot of terrain. Don't get me wrong, there are compounds that the teams can play down here, but eventually those compounds, they become kind of obsolete, and you would much rather play the high grounds of the terrain, the ridges of the terrain. That's what really gets you the advantage over the other teams in the lobby. We saw some really good stuff. Happy with how 𝐿𝐵𝐻 played this one as well. Very close to falling out. The Expendables as well. Probably the other team or the other storyline I'm looking coming out of that game is they've fallen short again. They fall out before the placement points in yet another game here. They were very hot on day one. And I'm starting to worry that we're seeing that cold version of the Expendables going into Game 2.
I think coming in from the many years that I've been watching some PUBG, it's always been that way. You know, on day one, we start to see these star players, these really like, oh my gosh, they are looking really good on day one. Could this be the start of a brand new, you know, story for them or the brand new chapter for them? And then suddenly on day two, at the end, we start to wonder like, what the heck happened to them? And I was starting to wonder if the curse of the day one success is a thing.
Maybe there's a little bit of arrogance on the Expendables and they're thinking that they can go a little bit more aggressive and go for fights that they don't actually have a good percentage chance of winning. Maybe they're just caught off guard. Maybe they haven't warmed up. I mean, look, maybe I'm being too harsh. It's just the first couple games of the night. The Expendables had a fantastic day one. No reason to think they're not going to continue that performance going into the rest of the tournament. But the problem is for the Expendables, as we've mentioned, is that hot and cold nature. They're on or they're off, and there doesn't really seem to be any in between for them. And in the first two games, I don't know if it's been 0 points, but it certainly felt like it.
You know, sometimes there are some teams that take some time to warm up, and I think for the Expendables, having a great day one means that all eyes are on you. Perhaps last night the teams had kind of like identified how exactly their rotations have been, how exactly they've been playing, so it allows them to be punished. So that's the situation where you see that some teams, they don't really want to show all their cards on the table very early. And I think for Expendables, they're gonna have to go to the drawing board and say, okay, I know we did this yesterday and it worked, but perhaps we're getting counterplayed here, we're getting red here. What can we do to kind of like kind of like just regroup and figure out how to change how we play on day two? Because I did say that on day one was the icebreaker day. On day two, now that everyone's sort of like figured each other out, what can we do to adapt?
It almost feels like the Expendables have come into, and I could be entirely wrong here, but if I was playing, this might be my mindset. You perform very well on day one, you go into day two, and there's a little bit of complacency. Now, I'm not saying that the Expendables have become complacent, but it kind of feels like that, right? You wouldn't necessarily go out with 0 kills and 0 points in the first couple games if you're not really, or if you're not really relying on your fundamentals, if your protocols aren't being checked, right? So maybe there's a little bit of complacency for the Expendables coming to the first couple games of day two, that they have to reel themselves in, right? They have to make sure, okay, guys, hold on, we're still vulnerable here, right? Let's make sure we're actually playing properly. Let's repeat the performances that we had on day one.
All right, regardless, let's have a look at the MVP. It's going to be 𝐏𝐼. And I would really say that he is one of those standout players that's been really consistent in the team, a household name even. Now, 𝐏𝐼 has been one of those players that was playing very aggressively. He's the one taking out space. He's the one that's put so much pressure onto 2 different players or 3 different players at the same time as his teammates sort of like just decide to hold and just watch his back. And I'm really liking the fact that for SGD, yes, as a team, they're great, but individually, they're all very, very scary to deal with.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's not a team that you want to place yourself next to in any game. 𝐏𝐼 has been, I mean, he's just been such a joy to watch throughout this entire tournament. As I said, highlights throughout the play-in stage. Yesterday, he had some really good moments as well. And so he's absolutely a pivotal player for this SGD roster. 15 kills, 1,700 damage, put a win on the board for SGD in the play-in stage. Yeah, they booked their spot to PGC, but they're still here to play. They're still here to deal a bunch of damage to everyone else in this lobby. This might be one of the most volatile rosters in this lobby. You put yourself next to an SGD compound hold or an SGD terrain hold, and it's like they're just going to explode on top of you, and they're just going to do all this crazy stuff and go everywhere. SGD are scary like that, but they're certainly not afraid of that aggression. They are very, very comfortable when they're making that pushes towards you, when they are feeling aggressive. So very happy for SGD.
Yeah, now coming into the top 4 here, I think that for SGD and Team Bliss, it's a very interesting predicament for them in terms of their damage and how they've been playing. Is that, I mean, for SGD, they're the team that's been taking fights very early. They're not, as you said before, they're not afraid to take fights. If, say, they don't really kind of force these fights very early, it's more about just getting those stragglers, putting in that pressure. Anyone who tries to take a compound would take their fights. And when you look at them toward the end, especially, they're prioritizing that compound. They have a good protocol on how exactly they want to hold that area. Now, on the contrast, we look at Team Bliss, and I've seen this, I think, for so many times I've been watching them play now. They're not necessarily the team that gets that I would say area or a compound or a hole of place they want to hold very, very early. They take their time getting into the circle. They play toward the edges. They're hoping for anyone to just cross through and just pick them up in terms of I think stragglers or even kills. So I think it's like the same style of play but 2 different ways. Does that make sense? In a roundabout way?
Kind of. I think for Team Bliss, the reason we're seeing them perform well in these final stages is because of what you said. Essentially, they're taking their time, and their playstyle right now in this lobby is actually matching up very well with how the other teams are playing it. In the past, we've seen APAC lobbies that are relentlessly aggressive and relentlessly random, and it's difficult to adapt to what the lobby's doing because the lobby doesn't even really know what the hell the lobby's doing. But right now, everyone is playing a very kind of international European standard of PUBG, at least in the first couple circles, and it's giving Team Bliss a lot to work off because Team Bliss are used to that kind of a style. That they have been this aggressive team in the past, but I think when it comes to lobbies like this, they almost fall back into that European international style. And yeah, it's matching the lobby very nicely at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's really important that you're able to play these many styles because, you know, sometimes you may be strong in your own country or your own region because you're playing one singular style that you realize from your own region. But as soon as you get into a bigger pond, a bigger region, you need to start figuring out how exactly you can adapt to these situations, how exactly you can adapt to different kind of play styles. And the more adaptation that you have, the more pages you have in your playbook, the further that you will go. Now, coming into our leaderboard forward, as we see FW, they are the ones to have 73 points, still maintaining that first spot that they've gotten from map number 1, which is so good. But you can start to see that the gaps are slowly closing because just now the third and fourth spot, they had a huge gap. But now SGD and Team Bliss has managed to just really kind of like lessen the gap between all of those. And it's starting to get very competitive between first and sixth place.
This is awesome. That exclusive club we talked about in game 1 is almost completely gone. It goes down to 6th now. What
exclusivity? Everyone has a ticket. What do you need?
Exactly. It's all gone now. The lobby is wide open. It's insane. The Expendables and FW haven't had the dominant performances that they had on day 1, or not dominant enough to make sure that gap stays as big as it is. This is awesome. This is exactly what we wanted here. Everyone is showing up to this lobby. Everyone is being incredibly competitive. And when we move to 𝐏𝐿𝐒, it's going to be even crazier. Do not go anywhere. We go to a very quick break and we're back with 𝐏𝐿𝐒.
World updates to 𝐏𝐿𝐒, some quality of life improvements for training mode, and a new survivor pass. All this and more as we dive into the update 31.2 patch report. First up, we've made updates to some areas of 𝐏𝐿𝐒. The studio has been turned into an abandoned hospital, changing the layout, adding new buildings, and also a few more loot and cover spots. We also added a new bridge to the shipyard and improved the terrain around Hosan Prison, Songam, and Hosan to give you more strategic opportunities in this area. Next, training mode has been improved as well based on your feedback. Training mode now has infinite ammo, recommended attachments automatically on weapons, and the ability to save and import your personal weapon and gear settings. We also improved the sound training area to provide feedback when a wrong target is hit. This update also features a brand new survivor pass, map bug fixes, and more. So check out the patch notes for full details. Update 31.2 is here, so load up your training gear, grab the new survivor pass, and hot drop back into 𝐏𝐿𝐒. We'll see you on the battlegrounds.
SGD is showing us what it means to play as aggressive as they do, but Team Bliss showing their claws once again as we go into our third map here during the PUBG Global Series APAC qualifiers Phase 2. I'm Tash Bunny alongside 𝐏𝐿, your casters today, and we're gonna go to a different one now. What are your expectations?
𝐏𝐿 is one of those maps where I described this yesterday, but I feel like when you play 𝐏𝐿, it's very easy to get greedy. It's very easy to overstep your boundaries. It's very easy to justify mentally going for a third party or a team fight or something like that. The terrain is just generous enough that it allows for that kind of mentality, and that can obviously be quite detrimental, or it can be absolutely fantastic. Greed is good sometimes in PUBG, you know, greed is good, but not all the time. Sometimes you get punished and it all goes horribly wrong. But my expectations for 𝐏𝐿, again, they aren't going to change until the lobby changes, man. My expectations aren't going to change. Everyone, again, playing stock standard, normal style of PUBG.
Hey, that's not fair. We had a pretty good ending just now.
Well, that's the thing, right? Is by playing this style, by playing a very central heavy style, you're going to get really exciting mid games, and you're going to get really exciting end games. It's just the first couple circles aren't going to be as exciting as APAC has been in the past. So
you want to see the hot drops. You're that fan.
Well, I feel like I won one, you know, one or two. Maybe a team loses a couple members off the bat. Just give us something to look at, you know, during Phase 1 and Phase 2.
Yeah, so real. Now coming into this one, it is a whole different map here. As both teams have played Miramar, my question is just now, I think we had a bit of a conversation about this map, right? About how some teams, they might not put a lot of that, I would say, pressure and time into learning this or putting a lot more understanding toward this map since it's played less than Miramar and Erangel. But the teams who do might just come up on top for those extra points if you do find yourself in the back foot of these two major main maps.
Yeah, I mean, we're at a point now in competitive PUBG where you've got to treat each map almost with the same amount of respect. If you don't have all the time in the world, then of course you're going to spend more time studying Erangel and Miramar and the team's rotations on those maps, but you should absolutely obviously be putting effort into studying 𝐏𝐿 and studying Rondo as well, because that's the new map in the pool.
Rondo is very fun, honestly.
It is pretty fun. It's, I mean, there's complaints for it, for sure. There's a lot of open space, and there's some areas that need a touch-up, but it's definitely an interesting map. And my whole thing with competitive PUBG maps being introduced is as long as they have their own style and their own kind of way that teams play them, and the terrain dictates that the styles are going to be different and that kind of thing, then I'm totally okay with them being introduced. If they're going to have like a boring style, or if it's going to be like a sandhawk where you know exactly where the circle is going to go off the back of Phase 2, then that's not entirely what I'm for. As long as the map has a unique, interesting style, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, now circle toward the eastern side, and I think most of the teams have dropped themselves, I think, quite evenly throughout the entirety of the map, but it's Bleed as well as TMP that finds themselves in the middle. So again, unfortunately, 𝐏𝐿, you're not getting your early game fights. I'm sorry. Your expectations were low, but you're not even meeting it.
I'm used to it at this point. Everyone letting me down. Nothing new. No, I'm kidding. But I actually, like, it is very refreshing. Oddly enough to say, as much as I would love some early game action.
I mean, we're casters, viewers. Of course we want the fun parts to happen, you know. But as players, you're like, at the end of the day, it's a battle royale. It's the placement points that do matter, and the fights that happen. You kind of need to make sure that you can survive till the end with the resources, with enough players. So yeah, I get it.
Well, I might actually be getting my wish here. 3 minutes in, 𝐏𝐿 exposed, but not for long enough for Teddy.
Wait, did he see him? I think he did.
No chance he saw him. A little bit of an alt look across the road. Teddy's been spotted. 𝐏𝐿, that is very important information. Teddy just has to back off now. No reason to stay. Teammates are further away from him. If Take Me Please were to extend across the road, Teddy will be caught in the open. He's got to get the hell out of there. That is an incredible spot. Couldn't really see if 𝐏𝐿 turned his head around and alt looked on that jump, but I don't know how else he would have spotted him.
Probably he would have seen him from the very, very end of the peripheral. I think that's what's really incredible about these pro players. Sometimes you just, I think as a normal player, you would be more, you know, focused toward the middle side of the screen, but sometimes as pro players, you never know. Their eyes can just see that one little pixel out of place toward the right side of the screen. That's incredible.
Any rogue pixel that doesn't look like it normally should. You know, it's different colored or it's twinkling a different way. Yeah, you're being lasered right in on that as soon as you see it.
That is incredible. Oh my gosh. This just really gives you an idea of what to expect in terms of how a player's game sense and awareness is.
I think... Oh, hold on. Latte! Oh, it doesn't get away with it the second time. Not expecting another player. It's just relentless for Take Me Please with this compound. It's an ideal spot for a lot of teams, and everyone wants it. Everyone's also rocking up silently. That was a silent breach from Jun, and Latte couldn't hear that car, couldn't hear it rock up, and so Reluctant Squad take advantage of that. Take Me Please caught off guard. Megalos now knocked and flushed as well. Take Me Please, the central position is falling out of their grasp.
And it's just so unfortunate because they're stuck in between two different teams. Bleed, as well as another, I'm not too sure, I'm so sorry. RS, excuse me. Now this time our Reluctant Squad will try and rush up forward. They know Jedi is in there. He's trying to stay safe and alive. He sprays and he wins that fight. Happy to get that 1 point down. Nearly gets another. Finally knocked down in the end. Situation that's a little bit unlucky, but these early fights, Extreme, seems to have come true. You wished hard, you manifested this, and you're getting it.
Everyone's fighting for the center spot. These compounds are so easy to just rock up on one side and start to get a little bit of space as you maneuver through the compounds. Catch the team that's inside it off guard, and that's exactly what Reluctant Squad have done. They lose one, and I wonder if it was the Molotov on the ground that stopped them from getting that trade quicker than they did. But certainly losing Van Nye is not ideal.
Oh, well, I probably saw one. Oh,
well.
Sharp as heck coming in from both these teams. I think RS looks so good right now. Yes, they lost one early, but do you see the way they quickly just collapsed into the fight as soon as they found out something was happening?
Yeah, it's fantastic. There's not much more to say. I mean, they had the right tempo, they had the right pace. Just not quick enough on that trade for Van Nye. That's probably something to look at to see why he went down. He was also probably a little bit too aggressive as a solo, taking that fight up against J-Die. But for the most part, it pays off. The Expendables rock up now, looking to get their piece of the pie. We'll be going up against a weakened Reluctant Squad. Reluctant Squad have had plenty of time to set themselves up, bunker down. They obviously know the Expendables have arrived. The Expendables are being very loud. They've sent Clories forward, Duckdu's forward. Sorry, Jun peaks, immediately taken down by Tanvu, the MVP of yesterday, the MVP of the entire lobby heading into today. This is a fantastic opener for the Expendables.
They have these nice little crossfires done. As soon as one player gets shot, his teammate quickly reacted to that. Because they have no idea. Tanvu with that nade finds Jun. Jun already knocked down, already out of the lobby for now as TE. Happy to get that 1 point in the bag. We talked about...
Oh, I love this. I love this from Delwyn. He knows Reluctant Squad are getting out of there, so may as well put yourself on a spot to catch them on rotation or get 100% information. Such a nice move from Delwyn. Ideally, they rock up to Delwyn's compound, but they've gone a little bit further. Still, though, Delwyn puts himself in a nice forward position. Information has been kept up on Reluctant Squad, and yeah, the Expendables will be super confident now.
In this situation, we talked about the Expendables just now. You said that they are a team that you're worried about consistency. I think they finally found a little bit of their groove this time around. They found a nice little timings. They've gotten one pick off already. And as you mentioned before, Delwyn playing separately from his team as well gives a lot of situations where they're able to crossfire off each other. Now, for this map, as everyone is playing toward the western side, everyone seems to be already inside. I'm just eyes onto Team Bliss just to really see what you mentioned before about them, right? How they're able to just play a little bit more slow, take their time with their rotations. And I've noticed that their pathing is always the path last taken. You're never really going to see them meet with any teams very, very early until toward the mid-game.
Yeah, going for wide wraps, taking the soft side of the zone. Just trying to avoid all the danger. And at least in the first few games, the circle has kind of rewarded them generously for that, shifting towards the soft side of the zone. And yeah, it's paying off for Bliss. You have to wonder what's going to happen when the circle shifts away from them and they are forced to fight. How are they going to fare when they have to fight their way from one side of the zone all the way to the other? But so far it's been good. So far their style has been working. Their macro players paid off very well for them. And I would say there's no reason to change it just yet. No reason to overthink it. Don't fix what ain't broke, as they say. The Arena rock up closer to Bleed. Man could be caught off guard. But
It was
Arena
so
are getting too
loud
aggressive.
earlier. There were so many
Yeah.
fights happening, and then suddenly it's just all silence once again.
One team already out. And
Yeah.
I mean, once the fight for the central spot is over, once that engagement's finished and the teams inside the priority positions have claimed their spot, it's a lot harder to justify sending it inside, right? The most ideal time to go for those kinds of fights is when they're happening and then when they're being taken. But no more fights are being taken. There's no third-party opportunity at the moment for anyone looking to grab a central spot. I think Bliss spotted Tem Entertainment. I think Thanawat rocked up a little bit too late and got himself spotted.
Yeah, they were trying to cross that bridge, and honestly, when you look at bridges, you can sort of understand or have an idea that it's definitely going to be gate cap, because there's definitely going to be teams just crossing over with vehicles, because how else are you going to get inside the circle? And I think for Tem, this is the best situation they can be in to take this fight against Team Bliss. But one thing about Team Bliss is that if they have the information, if they know where exactly, or have an idea how it's going to be played, what a circle shift!
That's rough. All of that central fighting, I don't want to say it's for nothing, but
it feels like it.
Yeah, you don't get rewarded with the kind of feed that you were hoping for. This is a devastating circle for a lot of teams. Now there's a scramble to get inside. Team Bliss on the northwestern side across the river. They've got to swim across, boat across, find another way across. Emergency pickups undoubtedly will be used here to grab themselves or grab anyone a spot in this next zone. Bleed close enough to where they can at least set themselves up in this line of houses on the road. SGD just down the road from them. Yeah, this is going to be a dash to find the best spots in the zone.
Looking at that, T5 is the one that has quite a nice area. They have a nice little compound high ground, as well as TM Thanawat will be knocked out by AGG, and Team Bliss, as you mentioned before, will be swimming forward, and they do. I think I saw a shift from TM toward them, not too sure. As for AGG, we heard shots just now, but I'm not too sure who they're shooting toward. Now coming back into that area of the circle here, oh, there we go. Buram United will be the one to find one. Olympus knocked down already. But no answer yet from the other members of FOR. EAD is here. They're trying to find a way to just really crunch them from two different areas. As Khan is rushing up forward, puts in a bit of a nade just to really clear that corner, finds nothing. Timing could be crucial here if they want to try and get into the compound itself. Sololzi to find one as Gunaxi as well goes down. This is very bloody for both teams. Khan got knocked down. 6 HP in the bag. Buram United looked a little bit rough in the beginning, but they seem to be winning one by one. The members of FOR is going down like dominoes. KMM secured already. As Baron, the last player left for Forest that's left alive. And he's just trying to stay alive as much as he can, keep the dream going longer, keep at least the journey of their team in this map a little bit further. Dimusty goes down, huge. He can try to isolate this, perhaps just dwindle down the numbers, take this one-on-ones. That'll be massive! And he does! The team survives a little bit longer, and Buram United will be the one eliminated first.
No better weapon in that scenario than the P90 Baron, showing us what that gun is capable of. Buram, one by one. You said dominoes, and yeah, Forest were falling very quickly, but Baron had other ideas. That is fantastic for Forest Gaming. They needed that. Up in 7th place, very close to breaching that top 4. And Baron has inspired his team a little bit with that one. Buram, devastation for them. It was looking good off the bat, but they just couldn't get that 1 versus 3 off cleanly. Reluctant Squad now rotating through the circle. Hoang down again. The Expendables having a field day with this one. They are all individually split in this field.
Expendables. You can hear so many sounds of gunplay all around. TE. You have Baron in their sights. T5 up close here with EA as well. Now, if you look at the circle, Daytrade has quite a big area to work with, but that circle is not going to survive very long for them because AGG will be the one in the very smack dab middle. TM as well, very happy with that. But for TEM, they have to work with 1, 2, 3 potentially even 4 teams that's going to be crossing them. And my question is whether or not they can survive that long.
QC, where do they end up? Somewhere on top of the hill. Like you said, AGG in that prime central spot. Looks like Reluctant Squad's compound is their target. One player inside, it's just 𝐿, and they deal with him easily. It's not even a compound, it's an electrical tower. That's where 𝐿_confirm have rocked up. Do they want to go further? Do they want to just bunker down and use their cars and smokes as cover? It looks like it for the moment. Off-center for them, but access to the hill that they can use to fight later on. As long as they can survive, as long as they don't expose themselves to teams like Bleed, then they should be okay. But you can't help but feel like that spot is just incredibly dodgy. No hard buildings to sit inside. You just have to use your cars. Just the half walls of the defense on the outskirts of that electrical tower, and then obviously the electrical tower itself. Very dodgy, but certainly doable. 𝐿_confirm, one of those teams I'm looking to do a lot better. They were very aggressive and very fun to watch in the playing stage. We just haven't seen that version of them going to the finals.
We did see flashes of it, and Monty will find a ticker to his name. The other members of EA do want to try and see if they can trade out, but Monty playing it very, very safe. Still, trying to go and confirm that pickoff. Nate, Tigger survives a little longer. That rock is giving him a lot of space to play with, but as soon as his head pops up here, it's going to be dangerous as he has no clue where his teammates are. And from the other end here is going to be Tem that puts in the damage into him. Inside here to give him a little bit of support. Smokes all around. Both players taking quite a bit of damage, and TEM, even though they are the back foot at the bottom end of this compound, of this area, they're the ones inside of the circle. They can gatekeep if they want to.
Yeah, I think it's very smart for Tem to extend out here and weaken the teams to their north. I think that's a fantastic play for them to make. They just have to be very disciplined about it. Because eventually Team Bliss, eventually 𝐸_ARENA are going to cause troubles for Tem Entertainment, and they want those troubles to be as neutered as possible. Jacob up against 𝐷𝐾𝐒. Not even a contest. Jacob doesn't take a single point of damage. Down goes 𝐷𝐾𝐒. That nade doesn't finish him off, but was close. I don't think 𝐷𝐾𝐒 is going to get res no matter what. He finds himself isolated from the rest of Team Bliss. 𝐸_ARENA and Team Bliss moving in basically parallel to each other. Maybe a bit of a opportunity for Bliss to activate off the back of 𝐿𝐿𝑋 getting knocked by T5, who are now also getting engaged in this fight. This is a 4-way engagement between 𝐸_ARENA, 𝐸_ARENA, Team Bliss, Tem Entertainment, and T5. And 𝐸_ARENA have completely disengaged from Team Bliss. They don't want anything to do with any of these fights anymore. They're just going straight down the middle.
Yeah, they want to, but it's still a hard rotation for them. It's an open area, and they're gonna get so much pressure from T5 as well. Now, 𝐿𝐿𝑋 does go down, as expected. You can see that for Team Bliss, this is a very interesting one. 𝐿𝐿𝑋𝐻𝐿, look at how he's rotated himself away. I think what he's trying to do here is try and just crunch Tem Entertainment from another end. And I think Tem Entertainment, they're quite aware of this. Regardless, Team Bliss, if they want to take fights, they do. And SDD, they're very, very happy to see whether or not anyone will be crossing them is number 1. Number 2, they haven't really moved at all from this area they've been holding for quite some time.
Alright, Team Bliss. Do you push into Tem's compound and then play the terrain outside of it?
Is that the bias I hear right here?
No, I'm genuinely curious as to what they do. They've got a couple options, but I feel like neither of them are super ideal. They might end up taking a fight with T5 on that northern side.
Yeah.
Probably a better option than sending it into Tem's compound and having to rely on that breach being the play. Jacob pushed out of the shack by the blue zone grenade into the smoke. Luckily for him, otherwise he'd be a dead man right now. Flucky spamming away, but Jacob is prone. We are looking for a lucky shot, and it just doesn't happen.
No dice.
T5 playing so far quite well on the northern side. Flucky, the anchor in the zone. One of the best spots for sure. Looking for his teammates to do well to defend against 𝐸_ARENA and now defend against Team Bliss. They don't take that fight with T5 directly. They move deeper into this zone. They're going to pull up on this ridge and look to fight from here.
I am honestly amazed at how aggressive Team Bliss is moving around the map. No fear, nothing at all, but TEM might find them in the end. Dangerous game to play. Yeah, they have no clue where to move, where to go. They need to get inside the circle. Rogue will be the one to put the damage onto inside, running for his life. Survives another day. His teammate is there to at least answer. Nope, not happening. 𝐿𝐿𝑋𝐻𝐿 knocked already by Thunders. And now that's the call for the aggressive push forward, as inside as well will be taken out by AGG. An unlucky predicament because their rotation, they found themselves in a 4-way fight and eliminated at 12th will be what Bliss will have to be happy with this map.
rough for them. You could tell on that rotation they didn't have a good spot in mind. They were just playing it by ear. They had that ridge on their left, and then they were like, nah, we're just going to go a little bit deeper. And as they went deeper, they discovered they were super exposed to the field, and then they just kind of had to pull up. And at that point, you're too far committed, and there's not much else you can do. Completely surrounded, torn apart by everyone adjacent to them. T5 still surviving on that northern side. FW getting involved with Day Trade down here on the south. Couple more members of backup looking to arrive. It's a nice angle from Flash. He gets one and the flush as well. Taking down Raze in a fight like this is quite crucial, and Thanadol's here as well. Day Trade actually successful on this endeavor. It's just down to Banana 1. I take that back. 𝐏𝐿 here as well. It's a 2 versus 2. Day Trade have made this even off the back of what was their disadvantage to start with. But FW fight back. 𝐏𝐿 with 1. Thanadol now last alive. We are now into a 1v1. And this 1v1 happens inside of the blue. Nades go out. Thanadol has to heal. The nade does not land. AGG being taken down in the meantime. This is desperate for both FW and Day Trade.
It's so interesting how this looked so good for one team and suddenly everything just falls apart. You need to pick up Flash. Thanadol is here. 𝐏𝐿, he's gonna find that point as much as he can. He sprays and he waits. Day Trade goes down. The patience that an FW has is insane. Now for EA, they're in the same predicament we saw earlier that Team Bliss was. No clue where to go, stuck in an open area, and they get eliminated. Fluky, he had marked him for quite some time and finally finds him in the end as TEM. They want to get active. They want to take this fight against CS. They know where 𝐿𝐿 is, but what about the rest of his teammates? They have no clue. With all these smokes forward, the flash as well just to hide the footsteps. Not going to be easy, so 𝐿𝐿 takes quite a bit of damage here. His teammates are there to provide a little bit of cover and support. As one by one, they know there's one on top. They marked it a little bit. West Thunders goes outside. Surprised that he's able to survive that long. He must unfortunately whiff that. What a terrible predicament to be in. They're not done quite yet though. Still able to revive. It shouldn't be too bad. Surprised that both teams are still a little bit more of a stalemate there. Not so expecting 𝐿𝐿 to be there, but they are good for that trade. Good protocols all around for Temp Entertainment, and one by one the numbers of Cerberus go down. It's looking terrible and terrible as the moment goes by.
One of the best teams in the world, one of the best players in the world up against Temp Entertainment, currently sitting in 16th. climax can't hit that spray, and it all falls apart for Cerberus. So 𝐿𝐿 down now as well. It is just down to that player I mentioned. One of the best we've got in PUBG right now. But this might be too tall a task. Stuck in the blue. Rogue's got it through the window. Temp Entertainment complete the compound fight. Up to 7 kills for themselves now. Rogue with 5. They've got a car to get out of here as well. How easy is this rotation though? Honestly, they've done their job. Temp fall out to T5. But those are valuable points for them to have grabbed.
They won the fight. Unfortunately, they can't go anywhere. This is honestly a very, very hard circle to play with. And honestly, I'm quite impressed that he was able to make it out there in the end before finally going down. Now, 𝐏𝐿, guys, knocked down there. T5, I think they've been showing us quite a performance today as well. They're not necessarily the most aggressive, but when they fight, they have some insanely good protocols, how they play off each other, how they're able to go aggressive. The timing has been really good as well. Now, we're seeing fights toward the southern side of the map. 3 teams over in this area as Teddy will be the one knocked down already for Bleed. And they're okay to play very safely, but they don't really have the luxury of time. They try to put in a little bit more pressure, but QC is the one to find them in the end. One by one, the players of Bleed will dwindle. It's not an easy task. 2 players left. They try to go for that pickup, and they might be able to. They're pretty close.
Surely SGD come over here, right? This is a 3-way fight.
This is a very quiet time from SGD, actually.
Yeah. Payne's over here now. Looking for anything that he can get. Surely he calls someone over at least. I suppose T5 are too much of a threat for SGD to justify putting more numbers on this engagement. But Payne will stick around. There's 4 members up of Bleed in that smoke, man. 4 members. I mean, that's 1 nade and Bleed are completely gone. Tanbu extends and falls. The Expendables down in 6 this time round. The best game from them tonight. Payne... Oh my god, he almost goes down. That spray looked okay, but he's put on notice. A bullet straight to the dome, and SGD have to back off and look towards T5.
Rough situation to be in SGD as well. Not as active as I thought they would be, especially as the circle has shifted, but think they're trying to see how they're going to approach this circle itself. I think both of them had already marked each other. That smoke will just break that line of sight. I think we talked about how SGD, they're a little bit more aggressive. They don't like sharing in terms of their compound, their area. But they haven't been as aggressive, and I'm wondering if it's the terrain or how many teams that's around that's kind of stopping them from being too aggressive. As Bleed Esports, they try to run away. They did manage to bring Teddy back online, but they're taking a lot of damage and pressure from other teams here. And the sprays are, oh my goodness, incredible from T5. This is terrifying. All they had to do was just spray one time and suddenly the whole of Bleed is gone.
I feel like that was the easiest 3k Ranger X has ever gotten. Bleed is, as they cross the circle, all of them were put down to like 50 HP. So when they rock up in Ranger X's face, it's just a feast. One clip and all of Bleed fall. Easy as that. And yeah, SGD, I feel like they weren't as aggressive because they were focused on T5. T5 were flirting with the aggression towards SGD, but they never actually committed to it. But it definitely allowed or forced SGD to be far more passive. And otherwise, almost definitely, they would have been third-partying that Bleed fight. And now we're into our top 3. A solo of AGG. And then once FAP is dealt with, there is a 4 versus 4 between SGD and T5.
I think earlier in game 1 we said, oh, okay, this looks very, very competitive. And now in this particular map, it's a very interesting one because we're seeing fights all around. SGD kept quiet. They're not as aggressive as I thought they would be in the early game. T5 is the opposite that exactly. Like T5, yeah, we see them having those early fights, but usually I think in Miramar earlier, we saw them a little bit more passive early. But this time around, they're so opportunistic.
12?
Yeah, these are all from players who are rotating toward them, but past their peripheral. They had put a lot of pressure onto these teams, and they are rewarded for it. With a circle middle too, what?
Yeah, it's like the best scenario T5 could have asked for, really.
Christmas.
Yeah. And they fought for this one as well. This isn't them getting fed in some compound and having a 9-circle feed and all the kills come to them. This is them fighting for their life on the northern side here. Coming down off the top of that hill, now entering into the low ground and racking up 12 kills during that time. This is a really well-earned game from T5. If they go out now in second or third, they've got 12 kills to be happy about, but they are definitely in the spot to get that win. FAP is being so silent. He'll have to move eventually. He's got crates in front of them, or in front of him, that he can nab a fresh helmet and a fresh 3 vest off as well. They are just landing in front of him now. And I guess what we're waiting to see is if he has any impact on this upcoming 4 versus 4.
I think SGD had already marked him already. For now, Ranger will be the one to put in some chip damage onto Pain. It's all about just trying to find that right time. Perhaps spot out ahead, perhaps put in that chip damage, just really weaken the team. Because it forces them to use their utility, their resources, and it puts them in a predicament where they're not able to play in the end as Pain knocked down already. The other members of SGD, you gotta do something. We're not seeing any movement, we're not seeing any rotations. They understand, they don't know what's happening, but they don't have the luxury of time as the circle is dwindling toward them. They need to go and try to force this somehow.
Yeah, they got to isolate a fight here. Down goes FAP. 0 impact in this 4 versus 4. T5 deal with him, and now there's just 3 players remaining on SGD. Jervis exposed, peeking outside of that. Uaz, he needs an opening knock here. He needs this headshot. He needs to give SGD something to work with, but it's so difficult. Patampong now coming off of that high ground, maybe gives SGD another line of sight to work with. That is the opener that they need. Ranger X gets a flush, yeah, but he gets taken down in the process. An opener for SGD. Do they capitalize on it? Smokes up. They're going to push towards the 2-man strong of T5. They're not going to isolate the solo player here. They're going towards 2 of T5.
Rossited is there as well to put in that pressure. His teammate is not down quite yet. He can go for the pickup. But he wants to try and secure Jervis, and he does. 5 kills already for him. It's a very good game for this particular player. He has been phenomenal as he rushes up forward. Secured already. They know MML is. Just a little bit of a Molotov just to push him out of his little hidey hole. Let's see if it actually hits. Minx goes down to the zone as well. MML eating quite a lot of damage. It's going to be so hard to survive. And he's trying to prolong it, but the end is very much inevitable. They're trying to play it very safe. Pushing away, trying to move in as a unit, as a team, and not get isolated is the name of the game here.
Yeah, matter of time now before MML is taken out of this game. Too much utility for him to overcome, and it is a very dominant 17 kill win from T5. 27 points added onto the board. Coming into this competition, coming into the final stage, they were absolutely on most people's lists as one of the favorites, one of the teams that should be in that top 4, and finally we're seeing it on day 2.
I think this might be that momentum pusher that we might be seeing for T5. I think they've been pretty good today. They looked phenomenal. They looked good. They were taking the right fights, going a little bit passive early, but that's nothing wrong with that as well. Again, stock style PUBG PC. But when you go forward into the end fights, the end game, the mid rounds is the question of how exactly you want to kind of build your trajectory. You did say that the team has had to fight their way into the circle. They've been really trying to move their way to the northern side, going through so many different teams, and they managed not only survive but come up with so many pickoffs.
A lot of the games that we've seen, a lot of the wins that we've seen so far in the play-in stage have gone to teams in which the circle has favored them in a compound or some really powerful terrain position. That's not necessarily the case here for T5. Definitely they'll take the amount of circle that they got, but they were fighting on that northern side. They don't just get away with 17 kills for nothing. That's not a game where you were fed and had everything to work off of. That's a game that you earned. That's a game that you fought for. So yeah, very well deserved on the side of T5.
T5 was so very fun to watch, but honestly, it was so different, and we're seeing a very different SGD in this particular map. Because, okay, yeah, you had the eastern side of the circle. I was expected to go a little bit more aggressive, take up more space, take up these fights, and the thing is, like, yeah, they usually do that. They don't necessarily have to move away, but perhaps this is a little bit too passive, and I'm questioning what might be the reason for these passive style plays for this particular map.
Yeah, I think SGD just found themselves in a spot where they probably had a lot of opportunities where they could have third-partied, but the pressure from T5, the pressure from teams around them, it stopped them from doing that. And I think that shows discipline on the side of SGD, right? That's not just them playing a very ballsy style, an all-out style. They actually have the discipline to not go for fights sometimes. They have the discipline to actually play to survive as 4. And honestly, that's equally as good as being as aggressive as SGD are. But yeah, I just feel like in that specific zone, SGD weren't really given many opportunities that were given to them on a silver platter.
Yeah, I think I'm really liking their protocols as well. I think what's really important as well is that, yeah, you can go as a team. You know there's one player, it's a 3-on-1, but they're not throwing. There's just a lot of respect given to that player as well, and I'm really liking the fact that they do that. Yeah, because we've seen situations where 1v3 happens and then everything just falls apart and you're just like kicking yourself in the back and saying, what the heck happened? We had that full advantage and we got isolated in these 1v1s and we go down. And I think that respect is very, very valid as well, because SGD has shown us a lot of these 1v1s and contact plays that they have been able to win. And it's terrifying.
You're spot on. They fully gave MML the respect, and it wasn't respect where T5 were afraid of what MML could do. It was respect in the sense that let's not give ourselves up. Let's not overextend. Let's not make any stupid mistakes. Let's not give our lives away for free. Let's just make sure we secure this game. And that's exactly what they did. You are spot on with that observation.
Yeah, I'm really liking how T5 play. I think I talked about them a lot, about how today they're really good with their calls, their timing, their rotations as well. But the fact of the matter is, in the beginning, I think I had this idea that, okay, this is a very passive team early, but they're able to just flip it with just a call. They're like, okay, we're naked or not, we're gonna have to take these fights. We have to find a way to safely go through these 3-4 teams that are rotating into the circle itself. And I think they've been taking up so many different teams as well. It's not like they're just holding down the area. It's more of like being able to break into that circle, hold an area compound, take these fights, and then as people were rotating inside, they were rewarded with so many pickoffs as teams try to get into the circle itself. Bleed was an example of that, and it was just so unlucky that they rotated late into the circle. Again, but this is a very, very hard circle. I think we've seen that throughout the entirety of the day. Adaptability is something that I really, really am surprised that PUBG players are able to do, because it's rough out here with the circles.
It really is. And if you don't have a spot that you've written down, that you've jotted down on your notes, that you have in your back pocket, like, it can be difficult to try and find your way into that zone. We saw Bliss struggle with that as well. They just drove through that circle, had nowhere to go, didn't really know what was happening, and unfortunately fell short in that moment. We are going to go to a very short break, and when we get back, well, not a very short break actually, we've got a 10-minute break now, and when we get back from that 10-minute break, we'll be going straight onto Rondo.
World updates to 𝐏𝐿, some quality of life improvements for training mode, and a new survivor pass. All this and more as we dive into the update 31.2 patch report. First up, We've made updates to some areas of 𝐏𝐿𝐒. The studio has been turned into an abandoned hospital, changing the layout, adding new buildings, and also a few more loot and cover spots. We also added a new bridge to the shipyard and improved the terrain around Hosan Prison, Songam, and Hosan to give you more strategic opportunities in this area. Next, training mode has been improved as well based on your feedback. Training mode now has infinite ammo, recommended attachments automatically on weapons, and the ability to save and import your personal weapon and gear settings. We also improved the sound training area to provide feedback when a wrong target is hit. This update also features a brand new survivor pass, map bug fixes, and more. So check out the patch notes for full details. Update 31.2 is here, so load up your training gear, grab the new survivor pass, and hot drop back into 𝐏𝐿𝐒. We'll see you on the battlegrounds.
，Hello everyone, I'm 21. I play for team PMA.
Hello tất cả mọi người, mình là Hoàng Ép đến từ đội tuyển Leaderboard Squad và hôm nay mình tham gia một trò chơi rất là vui vẻ. Hy vọng mọi người cùng đón chờ.
ผมทิกเกอร์ครับจากทีม Arena ครับวันนี้ก็จะมาเล่นเกมกับเพื่อนๆใน PUBG นะครับก็จะเป็นไงมาดูกันครับ
Hi guys. I'm Kermit the Frog. I like playing PUBG. My favorite map is Miramar. And yeah, I'm Kermit. Thank you.
เป็น TE Corey.
I think is 𝐏𝐿𝐒 from Team Beast.
I think 𝐏𝐿𝐒 from T.
Oh,
inside.
No.
I like playing PUBG. My favorite map is Miramar. And yeah, I'm Kermit. Thank you.
Hi guys, I'm Inside from Team Bliss.
Oh.
This is Cameron.
Almost.
Thanks.
ฮัลโหลสวัสดีครับพอดีว่าผมค่อนข้างที่จะเรื่องการยิงอะเต็งหนึ่งแล้ว PUBG ไม่รู้ว่าจะเดาได้ไหมนะแต่ผมบอกเลยว่าการยิงผมไม่แพ้ใครหรอก
I think Eddie from Brian.
EA Electric.
แดมตี้ต้องหัดแดมตี้
ฮัลโหลสวัสดีครับพอดีว่าค่อนข้างที่จะเรื่องการยิงอะเต็งหนึ่งแล้ว PUBG ไม่รู้ว่าจะเดาได้ไหมนะแต่ผมบอกเลยว่าการยิงผมไม่แพ้ใครหรอก
อีซี่จัดอ่ะ
สวัสดีครับ ผมเป็นหนึ่งในตัวแทนทีมไทย ก็ไม่รู้เหมือนกันว่าใครลองทายกันดู
โอ้ง่ายจัด easy
I think Thunderbird.
มันรู้ no ธนดลฮองเอฟ
No Thunderbird?
no เบลมอส
Oh, really? You sure?
yeah you can change yeah
Đừng.
you can
No.
you can check
No, the boy. I think Thunderbird. Yeah, I sure.
ธนดลครับผม
Okay, I will go for Tanado.
สวัสดีครับ ผมเป็นหนึ่งในตัวแทนทีมไทย ก็ไม่รู้เหมือนกันว่าใครลองทายกันดู
Tôi là một tuyển thủ chuyên đi lẻ và gần mò đối thủ. Tôi tên là 𝐏𝐿𝐒.
oh who are you
I think Kusama from TL.
same ครับ same คุยสมา
Okay,
I know him no copy I know him sama I know
I think Ninja 2K. Yeah.
Tôi là một tuyển thủ chuyên đi lẻ và gần mò đối thủ. Tôi tên là 𝐏𝐿𝐒.
น้ำมัน E85 หรือ E20 มันดีไหมครับ แล้วถ้าดีทำไมพวกรถแพงๆหรือเครื่องบินถึงไม่ใช้น้ำมันพวกนี้กันเหรอครับ แต่ถ้าเป็นผมนะ ผมน่าจะใช้น้ำมันพืชครับ
ทีมไทยEsports World Cup
Oh, from EA?
yeah from EA นะ
I think 60 of 𝐏𝐿𝐒.
Yeah, I think I go with last week.
I think 60. Yeah.
Sure? You sure không?
Yeah, I'm sure. 60.
CC ครับ CC
น้ำมัน E85 หรือ E20 มันดีไหมครับ และถ้าดีทำไมพวกรถแพงๆหรือเครื่องบินถึงไม่ใช้น้ำมันพวกนี้กันเหรอครับ แต่ถ้าเป็นผมนะ ผมน่าจะใช้น้ำมันพืชครับ
我有2只猫，1只狗。我的猫叫圈圈，我的狗叫富贵儿，还有1只猫叫阿强。
I knew it. Yeah.
Xavier.
I think PMA ลุ้น
I think it's 国皇骄阳 from Taiju from the X-Men.
我有2只猫，1只狗。我的猫叫圈圈，我的狗叫富贵儿，还有1只猫叫阿强。
I'm ready
Again, one more time. Good luck everyone in PAQ and thanks. Bye bye.
Cảm ơn tất cả mọi người đã theo dõi bọn mình trong trò chơi này. Cảm ơn mọi người.
ฝากทุกคนที่กำลังดูอยู่หรือว่าเชียร์อยู่ครับก็ฝาก EA ไว้ในอ้อมหัวใจแล้วก็ทีมไทยทุกทีมด้วยครับก็จะทำให้เต็มที่ครับผม
T5 showing us how this game should be played, blowing us out of the water and showing us why they're the favorites. And now we're going to Rondo. This is the PUBG Global Series APAC qualifiers, Phase 2. I'm Tash, but alongside Extreme, your casters for today. Now, Rondo, I think there's a lot of questions about this map. Fairly new map, very open, very groundy, as I mentioned before. You know, we talked a little bit about what it means for these players, you know, to play on this particular map. I talked about your expectations. I'm going to ask the same question again. Expectations for this map?
The same. The exact same.
Slow early.
Slow early. We get into it in the mid game. What could change it up is if we get duo plane paths. That can happen on Rondo, and then maybe that shifts up the early game a little bit. But other than that, I mean, again, everyone is playing this like their lives depend on it, and honestly, I don't blame them. There's a lot on the line in this competition, so yeah, my expectations aren't changing. Maybe we'll get a little bit of chaos going into it because it's a newer map and some things have yet to be figured out, but other than that, I'm not really expecting things to change. Ranger X from that last game, dominant T5 win, a dominant game from Ranger X. I believe he was delivered quite generously 3 of those kills from the side of Bleed, but other than that, some very good impact.
Yeah, Ranger X has been phenomenal this game. I think it's not just about he's taking space, it's about how he plays with his team, and the fact that he's not afraid to play in a situation where, he should be moving away, he should be playing, you know, waiting for his team, but when push comes to shove, he is very confident that he is able to win these fights, and I think that confidence kind of gave him a lot of edge in that particular map.
Yeah, and it just so happens that in PUBG there is a lot of push comes to shove, and the players that are most confident, the teams that know what they're doing and are most confident, usually come out on top of those scenarios. So a very, very fantastic win from T5. That's their second win of the day. Am I not mistaken? They got a win earlier?
Oh yeah, they did. Map 1, I believe. Yeah.
So good stuff so far from T5. We were waiting for them to show up on day 1. They showed themselves towards the end of day 1, and coming into day 2, they're putting on the Expendables level.
Great momentum, actually.
Yeah, it's fantastic from them.
Because I think for day 1, again, it's the ice-breaking sessions where you get to know each other, know how to play off each other, and because they have so much confidence toward the end, from the end of day 1, they sort of like snowball off it, and these are the teams that you really need to watch out for, because once they snowball, they are an unstoppable force, and we've seen so many of these teams just really come up forward. Maybe they'll have a bad game if they're still if their mental is still able to just gonna hold on and still have that winning mindset. That'll be good. But some teams, they have the momentum early, and then they have one bad game, and suddenly they just sort of disappear for the entirety of the tournament, and that is something that a lot of these teams need to avoid. All the teams need to avoid, in fact.
There is $250 on the line for the longest kill in the lobby, and so far Belmoth has it locked down, 560 meters. The longest kill in the play-in stage was 630, I think, so not that far off, but still, it is a bit of an ask to try and get a long-distance kill.
Let me ask you a question here. I'm so sorry, but like, now that you have the longest kill award, right? That's something that they can get. Do you as players actually try for it, or does it just happen?
No, it just happens. If you end up with the longest kill, you end up with the longest kill. Similar story will be going for the field medics. There's no one player on the team that is going to like ask for revives or be designated to revive, right? You will have support roles, of course, but just because you're the support role doesn't mean you're going for revives. Revives are very situational. So there is a prize on the line for the field medic. It is another one of those prizes that's just going to go to the person that gets it, right? No one's going to be going for it. No one's going to knock people and get... Well, actually, they could knock their own teammates and go for those reses if they wanted to farm those numbers, but maybe that would be against the rules. And then, of course, there's one for Grenade Master as well. This is one you can certainly kind of pseudo-try for, subconsciously try for, pick up as many grenades as you can.
I mean, the meta is here, right?
Yeah, it's a very heavy grenade meta, and it's definitely a prize you can kind of go for, but obviously very situational as well. Right now, it's HiMass in the lead. Who else but HiMass? That is 17 points over second place in that previous game. 27 total is an obscene number.
It is. Now, T5 just now ended that game with a phenomenal 27 points. I think in the pre-show, I did bring up, like, you know, in this game, anything can happen. You can suddenly end up with, like, maybe we'll have a 20-point, you know, gap between the first and third place. Who knows, right? Then suddenly that first place is taken away from these sort of games, where you have 10 points for placement and 17 kills. I've seen games with 23 kills even. And those are those outlier games that can really push a team forward, and T5 is definitely feeling it. I wouldn't be surprised if they continue this momentum throughout the night. Now, AGG with 10, SGD with 9. You can see how big the deficit is between the two teams. And now once again, we're seeing from the beginning of the day, and now we're seeing another gap between the two teams here. 92 points for T5. About what? Over 20 points for FW. Less than 20 points.
Just less than 20, yeah.
Yeah.
They're creating the club of their own, essentially, at the top of that leaderboard. Everyone else trying to get in. And
I want to get in the club too. Come on now.
Same. I'd love a part of that $25,000 for first. T5 have it in their hands right now. I mean, look, everyone below them till basically 6th is in punching range of T5. If you're Forest down there in 7th at 50 points, along with Day Trade, you've got more work to do. You're going to need a few good games before you catch up to T5. But yeah, phenomenal performance from them. One of the reasons why they are the favorites. That is the second win of the day. Yesterday, we saw Thailand get 1 win out of the 6 games, and coming into the first 3 games of the day, T5 have claimed 2 victories for Thailand.
I mean, you can call me a bit biased. I mean, I'm from Malaysia. SGD is going to be, have a special place in my heart. But Thai players are built so different in this game. I don't know what about them, but I think for the many years that I've been watching some of these players, right, it feels like Thailand is just so adept at playing this game. They've been very strong. Yeah, they're very adaptable. They're not afraid to change up the way they play, and the firepower these players bring in is very terrifying, to say the least. So that's why I say that Thai players are built different.
Yeah, I think APAC has that one, if anything, if APAC has absolutely anything when it comes to them versus the international stage, it's firepower. The players in this region are so terrifying to go up against. They have an air of arrogance about them when it comes to taking 1v1s, that when they put themselves on that international stage, it probably shocks a lot of people. It's like, why is that person taking that fight with me? It's, well, because he's confident. He's confident and capable at the exact same time. And yeah, Thailand is one of those very dominant regions. They haven't gotten their international win just yet. Cerberus have done that for Vietnam. So we're waiting for Thailand to put together that very powerful roster that's able to claim a win over the best teams in the world. Maybe this T5 roster is that roster.
Yeah, I think it looks really good for them right now, but the thing is, it's only day 2. We still have a few more days to come forward. And yeah, and I think I think it's really hard to really pinpoint a team that's really consistent or be favorites in this particular game, because every team seems to have a game plan. Every team seems to really be okay to adapt. I mean, yeah, there are teams like, say, Bleed or even, say, Team Bliss, who play the same game over and over for many years. It's the same kind of trajectory on how exactly they want to approach a game or a circle. But end of the day, it comes down to how you execute it. And the executions or adaptabilities doesn't have to be drastic. It doesn't have to be like a whole rotation change or a whole shift in the play they play. It's just more about just trying to make sure okay, if this circle happens, what's our protocol? If we're left with only 3 players in this circle, what are we going to do? And I feel like all these teams have an idea on how exactly to be playing this, and that's very exciting to see, especially if they're adjusting throughout the entirety of these days, because between each day, there's not a lot of time to really change their game plan or their gameplay. Yeah,
you almost have to really rely on just your fundamentals and protocols to push you through sometimes in a lobby like this. You can, of course, VOD review, you can study, you can make sure you know the lobby like the back of your hand, but the situations are never going to be the same in a game of PUBG. They just aren't, right? And so when it comes time to make one of those plays and you're looking at your playbook and you've gone, okay, well, these teams haven't done exactly what I thought they would do, and now we're in a spot where we've never been before and I don't know how to play this. That's when you fall back on those fundamentals. That's when you fall back on the protocols. That's when you fall back on just basic PUBG understanding, right?
It's that game sense, right? Some players have it. I mean, Latte just now showed us one of the, I would say, fundamentals, or rather game sense, that you can have as a player on your own, being able to cross by and still be so aware of your surroundings. Some players have this more, and that display is something that we didn't really see all the time, and it really made me realize how much important this is as a player to have in a team itself. Now, coming into this next one as well, I think there is another thing you have to worry about as well as a team now. Coming toward the last few days, right? It's more of okay, we win day 1, day 2, we're looking good. How do we adapt as we go into day 3? And my question to you is, as a player, how do you prepare with such a small amount of time in between each day?
Well, you've got to look at the mistakes you were making, right? Everyone in this lobby is going to be making mistakes. Even T5, as dominant as they are right now, they were not perfect on day one, and they haven't been perfect on day two. So you look at those mistakes, you look at where you were caught out on rotation, you look at where your individual players are messing up, you look at where your teamwork is going wrong, and then hopefully on that day off, you're able to remedy those mistakes. Those are, I mean, that's the first place you look, right? The other place you would look is if you've come into this tournament with a style in mind that you want to play, and throughout the first 9 games, you haven't actually played that style. You've been complacent or lazy, and it hasn't really, you haven't actually been disciplined when it comes to what you said you were going to do. You can also look at that and you can go, okay, well, how do we actually reel ourselves back in and play the style we said we were going to come into this lobby playing? Those are the 2 places I would immediately look, but there's so many variables and so many minute places you can look to fix mistakes and maximize in PUBG. So yeah, even with that 1-day break, it's not enough.
Definitely, because if you want to do very big, drastic playstyles, this is something that most teams had already prepared months and months prior. That's why I said that, okay, if you have pages in your playbook, you have one with the minute changes, this, what protocols, and then the other playstyle is a big shift in rotations. I think if many of you know how these teams drop, they have their usual drop spot, and then they have their alternate drop spot if, say, they don't get to a place they want to get to because of flight paths, or because a team had already made it to their drop spot and they don't want to fight.
Speaking of drop spots, are we getting any hot drops? I don't think so. Maybe
Disappointed. The disappointment in your voice is just so loud.
Maybe. Oh, we got one! We've got one! Day trade up against Reluctant Squad. Hwang opens it up. I am fulfilled. Belmoth down. He was alone, isolated. No one else on day trade anywhere near him to try and help him out. Not even through the windows, not even through the lines of sight that you can get in this city. He is completely alone, and Reluctant Squad open this one up.
Yeah, happy to find Belmoth as well. A lot of shouts and rings of the guns all around, but no contact quite yet. Despite the fact that both teams are in the same area, they're not necessarily in the same building. And I think it's great that RS has decided to play together just to really stop the situations where they are getting traded out. Now inside this compound, Tarado all alone, and because he's meeting up with 2 players, bit too much firepower to deal with, and they find themselves dwindled down to only 2 players after this.
Make it
3, 1.
Make it 1. Flash gets taken down as well. Reluctant Squad have been very good in this fight. Neck and neck with Day Trade on the leaderboard as well. They will take out their competitor, and that puts them in a fantastic spot this game to overtake them. If not, overtake them already. Look at that, already up to 7th. Them, Forest, and Day Trade, count Buriram and AGG alongside them as well, are in that mid-pack. And that's a fantastic way for Reluctant Squad to try and escape that mid-pack and put themselves to the top of the leaderboard. We saw very good consistency from these guys during the play-in stage. Nothing too crazy, nothing insane, just consistent PUBG. And this is a fantastic way to start. Rondo, where do they go from here, though, is the question. They've got all the momentum in the world. They've warmed themselves up. They took that 4v4 that you can sometimes look for to warm yourself up into a game. They've done that in the first 2 minutes of the game, so the world is now their oyster.
Yeah, and I think that these early fights, a lot of teams are afraid to take them because there's too much at stake. Losing your player a little bit too early is something that you don't want to lose. You don't want to end the game with, or start the game with, because we've seen situations where you take those early fights, you win, you get 4 pickoffs, but at the cost of 2 players, 3 players, maybe even 1 player. And I mean, the fact of the matter is, for PUBG, the strength is always going to be in numbers, and having 4 players secures you. The more mob players you have, the more firepower you have, and the better your chances are to be getting that chicken dinner toward the end and even surviving. But they have made that gamble worth it, and that's the high risk, high reward play that we used to see. I think SGD used to play that way a lot. I think we saw it during phase 1. They take these early fights, they win it, and then they just kind of move throughout the entirety of the map, just getting kills. And we have seen players play that way. But I think as, the stakes are a lot higher, as we end the season and you want to be able to secure things, it's been a little bit more of a change of pace.
The Expendables are very close. Well, they were very close to Reluctant Squad. They've kind of changed targets now, moving towards E Arena. Tigger alone in that compound. Clories and Tanvu being diligent. on their clears. Very cautious. They know someone's around here. That buggy is not theirs. Tigger alone in the corner with an S12K. He might prefer a DBS or a pump shotgun, but this is the shotgun he's got. 10 bullets to work with. Definitely won't need that many. And it's just up to the expendables to round these corners, expose themselves in that window, or enter these premises. Tandra's actually shooting at 𝐿𝐿𝑒𝑟𝑖X on that bridge. This is a fantastic time for Tigger to activate.
Ew.
He does. And he's just taken down through the window. That is such a buzz kill for Tigger. Looking for that opener as soon as Tandra was baited, but Tandra is just wiser.
That is the textbook definition of timing is your enemy. I bet you he was holding that for so long, found nothing. Now by the time he peeked in, he peeked out, he gets shot straight in the face. Now the other members of EA, they are running with their tail between their legs straight toward that bridge. And the expendables, they're gonna be just trying to see if they can get picked. They do. Jacob knocked already.
Wow.
And they are not in a position to go pick him up. 𝐿𝐿𝑒𝑟𝑖X so low as well. And the EA, today, they are looking to have a very rough start onto Rondo as Jacob also falls.
Yeah, very rough. Not how you want to start the day at all. Tigger had to get at least one there. That was his job. His teammates came across the bridge to bait for him. But the expendables were ready for it. Tanvu was ready for it. And they get 2 kills off the back of it. So well done from them. Doesn't look like they're falling off as hard as we were scared about. As Khan gets in the glider. I feel like we've seen a lot of gliders on Rondo. Feels like we don't see that many on Miramar and Erangel.
I mean, we saw one just now. One.
Yeah, we did. But I feel like I've seen a lot more on Rondo. I don't know why. Maybe it's the spawn rates. There's more spawns for gliders on Rondo. But I feel like I've seen a lot. And obviously it's quite useful on a map like Rondo. Tem leave their compound to get shot at by 𝐿𝐿𝑒𝑟𝑖X. But they duck behind the tree cover. And they should make this rotate okay.
This is a very, very big map with so much land. If anything, I'm just very happy we got that early fight in the beginning because I feel like it's going to be a lot slower from now on. But regardless for that, majority of teams have already gone into the circle itself. Looking at CES, Bliss, Bleed, FW, already making their way toward the middle area. I'm surprised that Bliss had already gone toward the middle side because usually their game plan is play toward the side of the circle, take our time. But I'm guessing that they were already pretty close by, so they decided to prioritize where they want to go.
Yeah, I think they looted in that area. Just found themselves in a good spot to get a prior position, along with a lot of the other teams. I mean, the circle is on the plane path, and so a lot of teams would have just found themselves in a good spot as soon as that phase 1 popped. No reason not to take prior positions, even if you are a very edge-heavy team. Even if you're most comfortable playing on the edge, coming in late, it's very risky to opt to go for that when you have access to central spots. So, I mean, it's not like anyone in this lobby is super edge heavy anyway. I feel like this entire 16-team lobby just wants to go for the center of the zone. That's what we've been seeing. Tem set up nicely, almost dead center. Cerberus the same, Bleed, similar situation for them. QC on the north, also in a great spot. FW and SGD, I feel like they're about to combine here on the eastern side. But before we see that, it's just Tem trying to win this war of attrition up against Bleed.
But they're not going to be showing their cards early, though. I mean, it's just shots, pot shots to each other. Pressure. But both teams are just very, very stubborn to not show or just push because they understand the predicament of what happens. Because that's kind of like the reason why sometimes when you're inside a compound and you want to move out of it, it's just big open areas. So it's best to just lay in wait. And as for Bleed, they have quite a big area in hand. I mean, yeah, they have the compound, but they have Man as well as Trick just sort of securing the area. They have making sure everything is clear. Perhaps they can go for a pick-off for any rotators. But again, this is a very, very big map. I don't think that we're going to be expecting to see any fights very, very soon unless you are dead set in the middle of the circle. And even then, if you're looking at the map feed itself, we're barely seeing any shots.
Yeah. Everyone just wanting to survive. I mean, if you lose a helmet now, if you lose a vest now, it has implications going into the late game. So no reason to. That said, it is very tempting to just take DMR shots all willy-nilly. It's fun. You want to warm yourself up, keep yourself engaged in the game, even if they're super long distance, even if you've only got 100 bullets spare. Sometimes you just may as well. But you're right, it is very quiet, very passive. The teams that are on the outskirts of the circle are just coming in now. Once 𝐴𝐴rena find themselves inside, once the Expendables enter the zone, that is all 16 teams inside this phase 1. And like you said, the action will start to happen as soon as that occurs. But yeah, for the moment, I feel like a lot of the teams, including AGG, are just seeing what they can get away with as well. If you're coming in and if you're a bit off-center, if you're a bit closer to the edge, then no reason not to limit test, no reason not to spread yourself out, see what you can actually get in this phase 1. But phase 2 about to pop. Is it going to be fair? Most of the other circles tonight have been pretty unfair, but that one is pretty fair. Not exactly a donut, but not super harsh either. So no scramble to get inside, no desperation. There is emergency pickup on the side of 𝐴𝐴rena, and I believe someone else on the eastern side, but apart from that, pretty standard.
Yeah. And throughout all that, I mean, the only teams that's really been fighting was Day Trade. And we only saw 2 players of E taken out. Very passive from both teams. And T5, a team that honestly, I'm very, very impressed by them. Seeing how they've been maneuvering themselves throughout the day. I mean, they're okay with playing passive. They have many little facets on how exactly they want to approach the game, and I'm really enjoying this because the time they go aggressive, it's very fun to watch. If they go passive, you can sort of like understand why the call is to do so. And this time around, Akita spots those. I mean, you aren't kidding. You're seeing a lot of those. Another one already. Trying to spot one out of the air, finds nothing. And as players are quickly shifting over, Akita putting in a lot of pressure onto Forest. The only thing he's managed to do is put in that chip damage. But he's still gonna be okay with that. As Team Bliss, this is the most active I've seen them, at least this game, where we have Insight inside this vehicle, just trying to see if he can spot anyone out there to get a little bit more space, scouting out. And I think Insight has been phenomenal throughout his entire years. I think he's been playing this game for so long. One of the most experienced players I've seen around here, and he's one of the, I would say, I love seeing how he's been able to just scout out the area. Now, for Tem, they're gonna go straight into this area. With Thunder's knockdown already, they have to go for the pickup itself, and he does. The other members are still inside the area. Buram United, they find themselves with Tem quite some time now, as Thunders does eventually go down once again as he's picked up 𝐴𝐿e all alone. Rogue spots him out, puts a little bit of shots, finds nothing. As his teammate is now here to just quickly wrap on the other side, and he goes down. Rough situation to be in. 𝐿𝐿e was not expecting 2 people to push him. But on the top side of the area, this is death from above. I am not expecting this. You think you look left, right, center, inside of buildings, and suddenly you look up, you see someone just shooting you from the sky. That is scary.
It stops Tem Entertainment from pushing towards the rest of Buram. Allows them a lot more freedom. Khan, finally he opts out of the air, joins his teammates, but yeah, he stopped any push that Tem were thinking of making. I almost think I remember Khan getting a knock from the air, but maybe I'm mistaken. I thought maybe I saw something like that, but maybe not. Either way, Tem and Buram now engaged in a stalemate. Both teams up as 3. And Buram need a good game in here at some point. So do Tem, I suppose, but the expectations will be higher for Buram. And losing Eddie in that engagement is not ideal. Ming's up here on the smoothed out unplayables, but still finding some sort of safety. Actually, I wonder whether those bushes render in at a distance and whether he's actually full safe on top because no one can see him, or whether they don't render and there's just a little silhouette of a player. Looks like there's a silhouette.
Yeah, they spot him. And he gets knocked instead. Look at how much pressure Bleed has put onto him. And I'm not sure if his teammates are close by for the pickup.
No.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Well, they're below him, but
getting up there is rough, though.
Yeah, rough, if not impossible, if you don't have a glider or a emergency pickup. And then he's got to fall off of that as well if he wants to get rezzed. But he'll take the fall damage in the process. So I'm pretty sure Mings is dead. No chance for him to get revived. It would have to be a very desperate attempt from SGD to do it. Nice shooting from Bleed. Yeah,
oh,
there you
actually
go.
Mings is the one that actually QC is the one that picked up that pick. Oh, there we go. That is tragic.
That's so sad.
Production, you made it so sad for us.
Well, that's what you get if you park yourself up on one of those unplayables and you try to be super annoying about it. You get punished.
Yeah, he had nowhere to go. There was no space for him to play in. He couldn't really move. The only thing he can do is prone. And Cerberus, wow. I was so sure that he was going to be able to pick off one, but FW was so ready and aware that someone might be close by here. So all around there'll be smokes just to cut off that line of sight, allow them to play a little bit more sneaky. But 𝐏𝐿 will be taken out. He has held this area for so long and he gets away scot-free. It's almost unlucky. Banana 1 knocked down as well already. 𝐏𝐿, a lot of pressure coming in from Cerberus, showing us why they are one of the teams to be feared. And they were all around FW like flies as soon as they cross. One by one they fall. 15th place is all they can do. 𝐏𝐿, what a GOAT!
Unbelievable. And that was a pivotal fight for this game as well. FW were charging to take a central spot, and Cerberus with a immaculate defense. 𝐏𝐿 gets 3, 𝐷𝐿 gets 1, and now there's basically no one left to contest them. They've got a lot of time to think about who's going to come and approach them next. So well done from Cerberus, putting themselves in a very nice spot. 4 kills on the trot too. That's momentum given to one of the scariest teams in the lobby. This could be one of those games where they escape out of 5th and put themselves in that top 3, top 4. Certainly looking like it. In the meantime though, there are 4 teams in and amongst Phong and Zizzy is alone for 𝐸. Very close by to Buriram. I take that back.
Is it deja vu for EA? Game 1, all they could do was hunker behind a vehicle, and now game, what, 4?
Yeah, they've
Hunkers
looked like
at the house.
They look so different to how they performed at PGS 3 and 4 recently on the international stage. And yeah, I just have to wonder what's happening with 𝐸. Whether it's confidence, whether it's that difference between LAN and online we were talking about before, whether they just don't, their style doesn't match up with this lobby's style, whether their drop spots were taken, that could be another thing. Maybe they didn't want a hot drop and so they're playing out of spots that are not ideal for them. Could be a number of things. UNQ making his rotation, not easy. He's down to 1 HP and his car's also 1 HP. It's smoking as he enters this circle.
Yeah. Just now, Monty was able to get a pick off as well. Akita close by as well. And I'm not sure what is going on, but I think throughout the entirety of today, Forest has been going toe-to-toe against Team Bliss quite a lot. Their rotations have been quite similar.
I mean, Bliss fed again. A nice circle for them. How do they keep control over this compound, though? Insight on the north. Majority of their numbers are on the south. You'd think they bunkered down on one side. In the meantime, though, Tandrew knocked. Trick and the rest of Bleed denying the Expendables any space to work with. Pushing up to this compound when it's not out, or when it's not in the zone. Maybe a surprise play on the side of the Expendables, but it has not paid off. Delwyn, now the last one alive.
I think just for a second just now, we saw so many teams just going toward this area and Bleed. They're playing this very smart right now. Making sure they have all their players in check as EA will be the one to find one player, but over on this end for T5. Play closely inside his smoke. They lost 1 player already. Ranger finds Zest. He's low. Just started to just secure that pick off. His teammate is there just to help. Knows exactly where the final player is for AGG, all the way in the backside. He knows that no areas can be pushed as well. They're making sure to just tie out any loose ends. And the Expendables eliminated at 13. And T5, this is a momentum in a bottle, and they've finally let loose. Aggression as well, very well timed, and it's terrifying looking at how they play.
Yeah, this is a scary T5. Surti was the designated anchor in that situation for AGG, but he couldn't get anything done really. His team just gets decimated in front of him. Bleed now rock up to somewhere in the zone, doesn't look super ideal, having to use cars as cover. Teddy and Trick coming in a bit late. Chexing and his teammate in Nawadra combined damage done to Dynasty. It's Nawadra on Dynasty, the 2 players that basically swapped positions on these rosters, just now down to Khan. 1 HP. Nawadra confident on the grenade. Who needs a gun when you can just throw an explosive in Khan's face? Nawadra's got all 3, taking down his former team in a show of dominance. He has 5 kills to his name already in this game.
That was perfect. It was disgusting, but also perfect. His
He's
teammate
pushing
had
with a nade.
With a nade, yeah. But also the fact is, the whole team was so zeroed onto his teammate that they didn't even check him. They didn't notice that he was there. He was holding that for so long, and 1 spray was all he needs to decimate an entirety of a team. And then with that nade, that good, I would say, use of util as well, phenomenal. And now we're looking at SGD, Pain here, putting a lot of damage, finds Haisaki already, and he's trying to go for that push. he's noticing that there's another team there. Like it or not, yeah, you get a knock, but you're not in a position where you can actually take your time to really fight this because the blue zone is not in your favor.
Oh. This explains, this is basically how the play-in stage, or the final stage has gone for so many teams. I explained earlier how Cerberus had put themselves in a really, really nice spot, really powerful central position, but it was underneath that unplayable. And so the circle shifted off of them, and now they have to fight their way in, but as soon as they fight their way in, they just get torn apart down to now just 𝐿𝐷. The SGD, though, a bit of problems of their own. 𝐾 coming in on the backside. Chexing goes down. Now it's just down to Nawadra again. What more can he do? He's done so much this game. And now he's being tasked with another 1 versus 2, 1 versus 3 up against SGD. They're just playing on the other side of the tree. MML coming in for support. Jervis has been knocked down. Nawadra steps up again.
God!
With the help of Monty from a distance, it's easier for Nawadra to get that done, but he still survives. Ay, what are we seeing?
It's come down to the wire, right?
Yeah.
How these players are the final players left standing. He shouldn't be winning these fights. He's out there in the open, but he makes it in the end. Nawadra is that player. He is him right now. Plot armors or whatever, he's making out alive in these situations, making it big with multi-frags, making it win in his clutch situations as well. And now we're looking at Team Bliss, a team that has Forest in their line of sight. We've seen them really toe-to-toe. I think I mentioned earlier how their rotations have been really meeting quite some time. I think the last 2-3 maps, they've been meeting each other quite some time now. But it's Forest that's in trouble. They're getting sandwiched between 2 different teams.
Forest have that ridge to play with. They don't really have to get involved with Bliss just yet. They can both focus on separate threats. And this is just DMR heaven for Bliss. They haven't even had to allocate more members to that northern side. It's just farm as much damage as you can, farm as many knocks as you can. Monty's already got 3 with that QBU. Akita now looking for his own with the mini. There's a mortar in there as well on the side of KM99. This is Bliss looking very good. Everyone else out in the field struggling. Rocks, trees, and a ridge. That's all these teams have to play with. So many smokes up, so many cars being used for cover, and Bliss has eyes over all of it. 𝐿𝐷 now coming up behind Tem Entertainment. 𝐿𝐷 actually the front man in that situation. Backup will be required, but for the moment he can push aggressively. 𝐿𝐷 might even lose his life here. He almost needs 𝐿𝐷 to do something or he might go down.
He might. This is a very big area to play with, and most teams aren't necessarily close by each other, but it's enough to put in that damage, so Roguenan goes down, but the players of TMP are the ones in trouble to knock down, and RS as well find themselves in the same predicament. They need to go for this pickup. There's a lot of pressure coming through here from so many different sides. They do have a little bit of area of the circle to play with, but their positioning has not been ideal.
And throughout all of this, Bliss remain in the kill feed with those DMRs. Akita there again. Down goes Take Me Please. Down goes Cerberus. Sorry, Take Me Please almost down. Just 1 member up now. Teddy stuck on that crate. Looks like there's a crossfire going on between the northern member of Bliss and the south 3. Yeah, down goes Teddy. I don't think he could survive on that crate. That looked like a very rough situation to be in. Bliss tally up 7 kills with those DMRs. They haven't had to take any AR fights just yet. It's just been free farm for them so far.
I mean, do you blame them? They have basically the best position right now. This is so ideal, yeah.
This is the dream for a PUBG player. This is sick.
They have, like, what, a nice little big area to play with, some high ground as well. And if anyone were to cross, you have a circle too. Now, for Rogue, he's gonna find an AGG. Sirti goes down. Akita happy to play these pickoffs or these long-range fights. You know that's one of his strengths. The rest of the team here will try and fight off each other. U and Q still trying to make it work, still trying to survive before Jun finally smokes him out of this lobby as we come up to our top 4. And I'm surprised at how many players are still alive in all these teams.
Nades out. Forest looking to end Reluctant Squad's game. Forest 0 kills already. They've got to pick up at least a couple here. Tem Entertainment pushing themselves onto Reluctant Squad might give Forest the opportunity they were looking for. Rogue pulls up. He almost runs that player over. They both hop out of the car. Down goes Reluctant Squad. They were beaten and battered. It should have been easy for Tem Entertainment, and it was. Up to 6 kills for them now. Loving the resurgence from Tem Entertainment, but I'm thinking it's over. Forest now pushing over. Tem completely caught off guard. They are dealing with the same problem Reluctant Squad just had. KM99 gets 1, and the rest of Forest will follow. Bliss now extend themselves out of the compound as well, recognizing that these are the only two teams left in the lobby to fight. No reason for Bliss not to take advantage of this.
Yeah. This has been very, very bloody toward the mid area here. Every single team wants to get a slice of those points. Every single team wants to go a little bit aggressive. And they do just explode onto the side. Speaking of explosions, Forest, 2 players knocked down by the Nane already. KM99 down and out. The numbers of their players dwindling one by one. They do get one for themselves, but it's gonna be Temp Entertainment that gets knocked out first. So Forest, they do extend their time inside of this map for a little while longer. But for Team Bliss, they're doing the same sort of play. They take their time, they go around, they figure out where the other members are. Mine's nothing quite yet, but Team Bliss, they do have the advantage. They are healthy right now. They have a 1-man advantage over Forest. And in this situation, they've put themselves into a 2-2. Akita, eyes on the prize, straight onto the members of Forest, finds nothing quite yet. So it's all silence around.
They've got a very nice 2-2 going, and Insight opens it up. They've got that high ground advantage. They've got that man advantage. I mean, name any advantage. Team Bliss has it. With that knock, they're going to go even more aggressive. Get closer. Get within nade range. They haven't used their utility this game. They haven't had to. So Insight's got 3 grenades in his back pocket waiting to use them. Monty has 5 waiting to use them. This is just going to be disastrous for Forest. They have to avoid an entire red zone worth of grenades here.
Outside the circle.
Yeah, they have. They want these guys dead.
They are so aggressive. And this is the Team Bliss that smells blood in the water. They're like sharks looking for their prey. Now, Olympus is here with his teammate, so they can try and either play together to put in this extra firepower, but as they're pushed outside of the circle, they also have one more disadvantage. That height disadvantage, the ground. 𝐏𝐷𝐀𝐄 spouts out Scrappy, excuse me. A lot of damage onto him, but not necessarily enough to knock him down. Finally does. That's a nasty headshot.
Easy for 𝐏𝐿. And yeah, I mean, if they weren't going to aggress on that previous knock, surely they're going to aggress on this one. But at the same time, they don't have to. They can just wait for Forest to push towards Team Bliss. Like you said, Team Bliss have that zone advantage. No reason to throw it away. Don't get too aggressive, but at the same time, you want to take advantage of the knocks when they come to you. It's a very delicate balance, and I don't blame Bliss for trying to tread that tightrope. That crate lands just out of distance for Baron. Would have been a nice little boost to the firepower for Forest in this endgame, but their final play, it seems, is on this southern side for Team Bliss.
They're really denying them a lot of space. Olympus tries to break into the circle. He does, but at the cost of so much of his life. Baron on the lower end of the area. Scrappy nearly taking a hit to his HP, or his life rather. Still very much alive. Slower ending than we would anticipated, but again, as you mentioned before, you have to be very delicate. You have to be very aware of where everything is. Akita there for a tag team, finds Olympus, knocks him down. Huge information just tossed to each other here. And you can see Team Bliss's game plan and also how they talk, how they communicate come through. Scrappy's still up there, Akita marking him as 𝐏𝐷𝐀𝐄 taking up a little bit more space. He wants to take this fight head on in the face. And he goes forward and he blows! Doesn't find him, but takes a gun to his face, and the chicken dinner will go in their favor, but that reaction is so valid!
Yeah. He's like, how did I mess that up? That was the freest kill of my life. Oh, yeah. Smiles on the faces of Team Bliss. They earned it as well. It is the dream game for any PUBG team. DMR farm for 10 plus minutes. Just have a ball. No stresses, no pressures. And then obviously they can just collapse on that end game and take out Forest for the win. Easy does it for Team Bliss. It is a very well-deserved win.
Oh, yeah. Really liking how they've been, I mean, I wouldn't say proactive, but they've been so good at not only just holding the space they've had, but because they have so much control of the area with those long ranges, no team dares to push them. And they've basically controlled the entirety of the tempo of the game.
Yeah, it seemed like a very difficult compound to push. Seems like no one wanted to get involved. Forest was, I suppose, the closest team to push towards Team Bliss, but they didn't want to either. They had their own worries. They had their own things that they had to deal with. Khan did get a knock. I thought I saw that in the kill feed. I just wasn't certain. He even throws another grenade to try and flush it from midair.
That is disgusting.
Does he get this one as well? He gets that as well. He gets the flush. Oh my god. Khan had more impact in this fight than I thought.
So I think we're gonna be changing the meta now. death from above, because that was beautiful, because all eyes are on the other teams and players at the bottom. Candace comes from above and you're not expecting to get shot up from the sky. Now QC was a very interesting one. Norda, to be exact. That was phenomenal from him, because not only was he able to kind of win these 1 versus 3, 1 versus 5s by being very patient and trigger happy, look at how he's been playing against SGD as well, winning that final fight in the end as well. So he's managed to really just prolong the team's survival in those map, even with those 2-player disadvantages.
Yeah, it's an excellent game from Nawadra, and 𝐏𝐶 need to keep having these good games. They can't just rely on individual performances. As great as Nawadra was this game, they need far more than just one individual to pop off. They need a fantastic game for themselves, and this is really the fight that opened it up for Team Bliss. I thought maybe they would aggress on this, given that both the other teams in the lobby were fighting, but they decided to play it more passive, and that's an entirely valid playstyle from Bliss. They had the zone advantage, they had the resource advantage, they had all the advantages in the world. And yeah, a bit of a funny end to the game for Cal there. Tried to get the Panzerfaust, but it hit the bridge or something. It just didn't hit the mark. Maybe it was the mid-air inaccuracy from the Panzerfaust, but yeah, well done by Team Bliss.
I think I really like that for Bliss. I mean, we talked about, you know, respect earlier, but I think it's more of like, I think I had a conversation with the players, and I think what they said was they have lost games where they go a little bit too aggressive, they overheat, they throw, and I think this is something that they want to make sure that they don't, because I think there was a lot of, talking, from them, like the disappointment of not making it to EWC as well for them. And I think this is sort of like they want to play it safe because they want to have their redemption arc. And it looks really good for them, because this brings back to like when Prime Team Bliss was around, right? When they were like so dominant back then. And it's starting to shape up that way as well. So I'm really excited to see this form of them come through once again into this phase of the APAC qualifiers.
Yeah, this is a Bliss. I mean, in the past, Bliss, I feel like, have played a style that they're not currently playing. Maybe they've changed something up drastically. I mean, to be fair, they've had 3 months worth of no games to play, just practice, just scrimming, just streaming, whatever you want to do before these qualifiers, right? They played those previous qualifiers to get through to EWC, and then they've done nothing up until this point. They had already qualified through to the final stage, so they didn't need to play the play-in stage. They've had 3 months worth of practice, essentially, and you would hope that after all that, it does pay off. And I think one of the biggest reasons, as I said previously, that it's paying off in this kind of a lobby is because their playstyle is matching up well into this lobby. They seem to be in those compounds and in those power positions when everyone else around them is fighting. They find themselves on the soft side of the zone, they get a little bit fed, and all of a sudden that's a winnable game from Team Bliss. And the biggest thing from Team Bliss, the biggest thing from anyone who's going to get gifted by the zone in any circumstance, whether it's heavily or not, is can you convert that game into a win? Can you convert that game into multiple points? And so far, Bliss are doing that.
Yep, Nakita will be taking the MVP for that map, and for good reason. He is the sharpshooter, he is the sniper for the team, and he was phenomenal. He's knocked 3 players around, he's putting the damage as well. And the thing is, I think what's really important about Team Bliss is that when you enter a game, you have an objective. Whether it's going to be either you want to go for those kills or you want to go for the compound. And I think for Team Bliss, they sort of like really, I would say not documented, but they've always kind of figured out like, okay, in this early round, we're going to play like this, we're going to rotate this way. And it's so, what's the thing that's called? It's so structured. There we go. It's very, very structured how they approach this game. I mean, like some people think, oh, okay, it's a battle royale, it's a little bit more RNG. But the thing is, in that RNG, there is some structure in there on how exactly you want to go for these rotations, those calls. And I think that's why I said for Team Bliss, yes, they play the same game over and over. It's very similar, but it's how you execute these structures. And I think Team Bliss has finally found that recipe for success.
3 kills and 800 damage on Akita there. He is a DMR god and showing it in the damage stats. Not much utility used in terms of smokes on the side of Bliss, but that makes sense given the fact they had that compound and that power position.
2k damage as well for Bliss. That is terrifying.
Yeah, 12 nades too. Most out of the top 4 teams in that lobby. So even though they didn't really have to use their utility all that much throughout their game, once they did have an opportunity to throw those nades, they used 12 of them.
Oh yeah. I think it also kind of like figures out as well how they want to use this utility. right? I think coming forward, I think they have really great utility management. I think toward the end of the games, I think they're not in a situation where they're in need or running out at this point, at least from what I've seen today. Regardless, coming into this one, Team Bliss will be getting our 20-pointer this game. Not as high as what we see for T5 at 27, but still a respectable amount to really just boost them up toward the end of the game, which is, I think, ideally the goal of how you want to end the day. But the thing is, it's not as, I would say, big of a divided points compared to before, because we do have Tem about, like, say, 8 points behind, and the rest is going to be 9 all the way to 6th place, where it's 6 points.
It's a nice redemption so far today from Tem. They started out the day 5 points bottom of the leaderboard. By game 4, they are now in 13th with 35 and fighting towards getting to that mid-pack. That is a very good comeback from Tem Entertainment. So that's very commendable from them. That's maybe the biggest shock of the day for me. They've certainly done their research. They've certainly shown up a lot more of a confident team than they did on day 1. Bliss put themselves in second.
They always do this,
place.
right? You think
insane.
They're behind. You always think they're behind, and then suddenly out of nowhere, they just burst up to the top of the leaderboard. You're just like, wait, what the heck happened? I thought they were like 12th, 13th place.
Well, the thing for Bliss as well is this year hasn't been very kind to them. Their highest placements when it comes to qualifiers and general performance this year haven't been very good. Right now, though, seems like we're getting a very different version of Bliss. A version of Bliss that is good enough for 2nd place in APAC.
Well, at least for a little while, as we have another 2 more maps to go here. We have 2 final Erangels. And this is a very interesting one, because Erangel is, I would say, the most familiar map compared to the rest. Yeah, it's like a comfort pick, right? Where I think every single team knows how to play this. When people ask me, hey, do you have a team that's the king of Erangel? It's really hard to say, because it's so situational, because every team is really adept at playing this map.
Everyone, no matter what zone pops, everyone should have a good idea as to how it's going to play out, right? We've played Erangel for that long that every time the phase 2, phase 3 pops, you already have an idea in your head of how everyone's going to rotate and how that zone is going to play out. But we go to Erangel after a very short break. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
World updates to 𝐏𝐿, some quality of life improvements for training mode, and a new survivor pass. All this and more as we dive into the update 31.2 patch report. First up, we've made updates to some areas of 𝐏𝐿. The studio has been turned into an abandoned hospital, changing the layout, adding new buildings, and also a few more loot and cover spots. We also added a new bridge to the shipyard and improved the terrain around Hosan Prison, Songam, and Hosan to give you more strategic opportunities in this area. Next, training mode has been improved as well, based on your feedback. Training mode now has infinite ammo, recommended attachments automatically on weapons, and the ability to save and import your personal weapon and gear settings. We also improved the sound training area to provide feedback when a wrong target is hit. This update also features a brand new survivor pass, map bug fixes, and more. So check out the patch notes for full details. Update 31.2 is here, so load up your training gear, grab the new survivor pass, and hot drop back into 𝐏𝐿. We'll see you on the battlegrounds.
Now, coming into today was completely intense. So many teams, so many players just really showing up as we hit the end of the day. And you know what's even better toward the end of the day? We're ending it with Erangel, everyone's comfort pick. I'm Tashman alongside Extreme. We are your casters today. And Erangel, it's going to be bloody. I have a feeling.
Yeah, hopefully we get some more early action. We saw Reluctant Squad go up against Daytrade in that last game of Rondo. I finally got my wish of a hot drop for once in this
sounded so
in this
happy when
final
it
stage.
happened.
I was very happy. I have been starved for the last 9 games, and finally in game 10, I actually get a hot drop. I was led to believe that there might be some. I was talking to Bliss as well, and it sounded to me like they had problems with their drop spots. They were going to get contested, and then we head into Erangel on day 1, and then there's no hot drops, and I'm sad. But going into Rondo, we had one. I don't think there's going to be any on this game of Erangel, though. Again, everyone seems to be playing like their lives depend on it, and that makes sense. There's a lot on the line
You
here.
always say this in the beginning of the game. You always do. You're like, oh, I expect the same thing.
I mean, it's true. There's nothing else for me to expect. This lobby has played basically the same for Phase 1 and Phase 2 throughout the last 10 games. Well, maybe 9 games, but yeah, no reason for me to expect anything different. I mean, I sound like a broken record, but it's true. It's true. This lobby.
I mean, when it happens, it happens. And we have been graced with some really good early fights, especially on Rondo. I mean, Erangel, you want to have a hotspot, fine. But I think it's harder because it's a more familiar map. I'm sure teams know what to do if, say, someone were to hot drop them compared to like Rondo or Tego.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you were for some reason to drop into Pachinki, then you've been hot dropping that your entire PUBG career. Protocols have been created. You know the tendencies of players. You know every building in Pachinki like the back of your hand. So yeah, if you are going to hot drop on Erangel, it's probably going to be more of a structured hot drop than anything else. Sometimes we see just pure RNG, go for a gun. If you get a gun, good. If you don't, then you're dead. But I don't think we're going to see anything like that.
No, I think if anything, it's just going to be vehicle fights. I think we saw that on Phase 1. Shouldn't be different here today, but I think what's more important is more of like what teams have in mind on how they approach this map. I think, yeah, the map is the same, the protocols is the same, but how you adapt, I think this is something that I always say. Now, I sound like a broken record on how exactly you want to approach these things. Now, today has been very interesting because T5 showing us their fangs and showing us why they're the favorites, and Team Bliss finally showing us what I've been doing in the past 3 months and what their game plan is coming into today as well. Now, we had a bit of a chat about Team Bliss and these, I would say, PUBG scene. And for Team Bliss, this might be the moment they want to come back for because they didn't make it for so long. But in that previous game, or at least most of the games today, they've shown us like, okay, we had 3 months of doing completely nothing other than scrims, practice, streams. And they look so good right now. It feels like prime Bliss again.
Yeah, I definitely want to see a game from Bliss where they rampage through the circle and show us the individual prowess that this team possesses. So far, we've got games from them where they find themselves in a power spot, where they've been fed a little bit, and the game is kind of easier for them. But I do want to see a game where they are forced to take more fights, where they are forced to struggle a little bit more. That, to me, will be the final test for Team Bliss. But if you're going to get fed, if you're going to get generous shifts from the circle, then again, the only thing that I can really say there is, can you convert those games? And we've seen Bliss convert those games. In fact, we've seen most teams in this lobby convert those games, and that's very important.
It's not just about converting games, right? Sometimes it's those moments where you're in a situation where your teammates are not able to get you. What can you do to survive a while longer? What can you do to kind of change the tides of a losing fight? And we've seen that throughout the entirety of today. This is just perfection and masterclass throughout all the regions here of APAC to show us why we are one of the, I think it's the craziest, I would say, regions out there compared to the rest.
Yeah.
But in this situation here, fight path gonna be just a very usual one toward the middle side of the map, just splits into 2. I'm curious to see how exactly each team will approach this.
Couple teams out towards Millie, SGD, and E-Arena are those 2 teams. The Expendables landing inside Pachinki, and everyone else going their separate ways. Cerberus with the coastal split. Daytrade going all the way towards Quarry. Reluctant Squad landing at the yellows, landing at Ferry Pier. Everyone seems to be fitting in nicely. The question is, what does the circle favor? Where does the circle favor? Who does the circle favor? Is it fair? Is it unfair? Does it have majority of the teams in it? Does it not? And like I said
Georgia
before we went
ball.
into this one, that is a circle that has been played out many different times. And so you're going to see teams go towards Everest. You're going to see teams play for both sides. You're going to see teams try and camp that West Georgia Pole bridge. This is a circle that people should know very, very, very well. That said, every time that water is included, every time there are bridges included, it can get a little bit chaotic.
That's the fun part, right? Watching these bridge fights, watching
Yeah.
those circles. And I was not expecting it. Honestly, my mind was hoping for a SMB circle. So, you know, guess it's opposite state today, I suppose. But those who dropped in a SMB are going to have a hell of a way they have to rotate.
Yeah. Thankfully, emergency pickups are in the game. So if you do want to skip out on those cars, if you do want to have an easy way into the circle, then just use an emergency pickup. But I think thankfully since the introduction of emergency pickups, we've still seen teams focus on cars as a valuable resource.
I mean, if you're dropped down as the emergency pickup, I think I've seen too many times that teams get completely overwhelmed as they're dropping down.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing is, right? If you do it,
Yeah.
if you mistime it and you put yourself into a position where you do it late, then obviously everyone's going to be set up around you. And like we saw happen to Bleed in one of these previous games, they just get torn apart on entry. So you've got to time it correctly, and you have to have a kind of a reason to justify its use. Because again, you do lose cars. You don't have that valuable resource. If the circle shifts off of you, then you can't you can't always rotate on foot, right? You can't always just run to the next zone. Sometimes you do need those cars, and if you use that emergency pickup, then you don't have that luxury. So yeah, if you are a military, probably, I mean, you can think about using it. It's the lazy option, right? Like it's the well, I can't really be bothered to rotate and save my car and park it properly. I don't want that responsibility.
You don't really need to get your, maybe if you get the thing early, you can maybe drop to a different part of the map and then find a vehicle. I think that's a very viable way of using it instead of, you know, driving off of SMB. Yeah, it's possible, but it's still a long rotation. It's possible for you to meet more people or take more fights that way. So I think the best way is to kind of hope that you can just drop onto an area where there is hopefully still a vehicle and then move on from there. But it is a gamble though.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're going to drop towards a car, you also have to do that. You don't have to do it early, but it is one of those things you want to do early because you don't want to be dropping on a car again in the middle of all these other teams that have already set themselves up. So yeah, definitely some timing, some skill involved. Probably see more.
You know, imagine if you drop to an area, right, and you go blind, and I think most teams do that. And I think I've seen situations where like maybe two teams were already waiting for you there. Not waiting, but just happen to be there. And then you just, as you go down, you're just like, oh god, there's nothing I can do to save myself.
Yeah, sometimes that happens. It's not a good spot to be in. But that's the price you pay. That's the risk you take. As you said, it is a gamble.
I mean, I think we've seen a lot of gambles. If you hot drop, if you decide to use the emergency, it is
PUBG is all about gambles. It's all about risk, you know? Sometimes
you drop in
it's
this
about...
area, the circle goes the other way, that's painful.
Yeah, but not much you can do about that sometimes. That's why it's about risk mitigation. It is about that adaptability. It's about improvisation. I believe in the early days, professional PUBG players were called professional improvisers. I think that is a very apt term to describe us. Well, not me.
I need to bring that back. Oh,
yeah,
never mind.
Screw it. Okay. Latte down already. He's had a rough trot these last few games. He started off very well, but since then, Take Me Please have fallen off quite a bit.
Megalos... It's like his luck for the whole year just went away in that one game.
Yeah, he had some great moments yesterday too, but yeah, coming into today, not so great. Megalos lined up with a grenade as well. In the wrong side of the ice cream though. 𝐿, can he get involved? Can he back up his teammates here? 𝐿𝐻𝐻 with a very unique off angle as well, but he has yet to get involved.
This is usually the case for these early fights. Maybe go for a pickup, get one, and then just move out of the way. You don't really have to fully commit into these situations. You still have a whole match of you ahead of you. So dwindling out his numbers can work out very well in your favor. And I understand that for this team, they're like, okay, we don't have to fully commit onto this fight. Just try to survive for as long as you can. We already got that 1 point. Now, moving our attention onto Team Bliss. They're a team that's, I would say, if anything, this is their early style play. See someone rotate, put in a bit of pressure, get lucky, maybe get a pick off. But it's not like they're going to fully commit. And I think this is a good, I would say, mindset. And I think it's a mindset a lot of teams want to do. You want to get a pick off, do a lot of numbers, leave, happy with that 1 point. Or if your advantage is in your situation, yeah, maybe go for it. But in most situations, it's gonna be a pick off. It's gonna be someone just stopping someone in the middle of rotations, and then you figure out where you want to go from there.
QC have ended up leapfrogging Team Bliss here. There's still plenty of space for both of these guys to fit in on the eastern side of the zone, but QC could find themselves with an opportunistic camp on the side of Team Bliss. But we go down to Everest. We go down to most likely a pivotal fight in this game. Expendables have rocked up here after trying to deal with Take Me Please, who they haven't fully dealt with. Take Me Please still reside in those yellows, still reside in train. And Buriram looking to take advantage of the Expendables' misfortune. They are so preoccupied. Shots now taken. The Expendables going much lower now on Everest. Probably needing to focus on just one of these fights, or just get the hell out of here to begin with. I think the Expendables realize they've bitten off more than they can chew. The timings are all sorts of wrong, so they're just going to back off, get out of here, maybe come back here towards Delwyn and fight Take Me Please instead of taking 2 fights at once.
A lot of pressure put in as well from TMP. They may be the one unlucky, but it's TE that's backing off. So, for TMP, I mean, as you mentioned before, Latte has been very unlucky, but he is the player that's been a little bit more proactive and not only taking up space, has been sort of like in the situations where he's able to get multi-frags when he's moving alone. It's just unlucky that he's just taken out so early. UNQ takes a bit of damage from Demastier, so forced to back away. Doesn't want to go too aggressive this early, but still, again, as you expected, it's going to be quiet a little bit more on the on this early few circles.
Very quiet. 63 live, 8 minutes in. Reluctant Squad have the emergency pickup on the ground, waiting for the right timing to use it. That's the thing, if you're on the south here and this shifts north, then emergency pickup might just be the best play for you, because if this does shift north, there's less reason for you to have cars, right? Most of the north is going to be terrain you can play on foot, whereas if this goes south, it's kind of the opposite story, unless it shifts towards Everest, of course. But I think you still need some cars if this goes all the way to the south. Again, if it goes north, then yeah, you can justify just emergency picking up. How do I even emergency pick-upping? There we go. I don't know why that one just escaped me. Into some terrain, and then you can play it on foot from there. So we'll see what they do. But yeah, if this does shift north, even if it shifts south, then emergency pickup is an easy way across the water.
Oh yeah. Now SGD has been a very interesting one today. They go dominant one map, and then quiet the other, and then dominant again. It's not a matter of inconsistency, but it's a matter of what they're able to do with their situation. And I think positioning has been one of the hardest things they've had to deal with today. In order to play as aggressively as they do, they need to be able to not only play super aggressive, but they need to know where the positionings are. And in this situation, it's another death from above. Come on now.
Unreal. I mean, I'm loving it. I
love it. I mean, as a viewer, you love it, but as a player, you're like, what is happening?
Yeah, it adds another element of like, oh, that's unfair. You know, like, I wasn't expecting that. I'm not going to expect that. It's a bit weird to play for that, but it is what it is. It is PUBG all the way to the north. Very, very hard shift. All the way to the northwest. Zaki is in that zone. Oh my gosh, if we get a Zaki zone, I will lose my mind. Haven't seen one of those in years.
I have never seen one in my life, and this is the most exciting part about it.
We could end up there, but we've got a long way to go until that happens. So many fights are about to take place, and that's why those guys were popping early emergency pickups on the south.
Yeah, and now for a bleed. Oh, they're playing this angle very nicely, Teddy. That is disgusting how he's been playing that. It's so hard to just really shoot back from here, as he tries to put in a little bit more pressure onto the other members of TEM. Now, Bleed as well as TEM did get one each, so it is still fair, a 1-for-1 trade. As Teddy's gonna reposition to the top side of this area, TEM, Thunder's very quiet in the back, Van catches him, he's just blind sprays, he's out of the smokes, and they find nothing, barely missing each other. What is going on? It's so messy right now as Rogue does go down, but not before Rogue finds Mun. So, it's all about them being able to go for these pickups. Both teams playing very quietly, and he peeks, finds one, knocks one down, and Bleed is finally making it up on top. But they're not done quite yet. There's still one more play to worry about. As 𝐏𝐿𝐒, Teddy knows where he is. Lob of the nade forward. Don't think it'll actually make contact. Trick is here as well. They hear the
Their resurgence is stopped short on Erangel, but they did take down 2 of Bleed, so Bleed weakened. Thankfully, Bleed are in the zone, and so they can sit pretty for the moment. This compound is going to be very ideal. In fact, Reluctant Squad and 𝐏𝐶 have already gone for it. Nawadra, the heavy hitter from last game, knocked down already and flushed. 𝐏𝐶 now 3 up. Reluctant Squad have the advantage in this moment. 𝐏𝐶 also stuck on the eastern side of this compound, stuck inside that warehouse, stuck inside this pancake. Reluctant Squad have more room to work with. Even Zayu's on the roof. I didn't even notice that. He is going to be very difficult for 𝐏𝐶 to deal with. Van Nye is now on the roof as well. How do they take advantage of these positions? That's how. Cheeksing Peaks immediately taken down through the windows of that warehouse.
A lot of space taken, a lot of areas to hold as well for RS, so... I think he missed a jump, but that's alright. He's playing with his teammate. And for 𝐏𝐶, see, if they can play their cards right, they might be able to get out of this alive. They just have to keep very quiet. Unfortunately, this position has been found by all pawns. That is disgusting. He's playing these QCQCs very, very well and punishing them for even daring to push into this compound. Very well played. So good as well. He needs to go for the pickup. But the matter is, where is the final few members of RS? Spots one out. He gets it. Not quite enough as 𝐾 confirmed eliminated. But it's a valiant attempt from the team.
Oh, costly for Reluctant Squad. As soon as they push in, all of them are knocked by that S12K, essentially. Now the Expendables arrive. It's 2 up on the side of Reluctant Squad. It should be quick for the Expendables. Van Nye hasn't even got a reload off. Immediately taken down. The Expendables arrive at just the perfect time. One of the best compounds in the zone is now theirs. What a push. What a play from the Expendables. A nice try from Reluctant Squad, but just too much loss up against 𝐏𝐶. Holy man.
That was actually more intense than I thought. And speaking of intense, it's Insight to find one pick off for himself. Jedi goes down and he quickly confirms that kill. The other members of TMP, it's been really unlucky for them today. Losing one very early, now walking straight into Team Bliss. Not a predicament where they want to be in because their numbers are slowly dwindling down from so many different rotations they've gone through. And for AGG, eyes onto EA, another team that's had a pretty dismal day. Tycon playing this side of the terrain very well, but making sure that he's able to play a little bit more safe. No information means you back off and you keep quiet.
Buram making their rotate as well, or at least Dynasty is. Park himself up that ice cream. Little foothold towards the north side of the zone while the rest of his team bunker down on that hill. Forest playing inside and outside of North Georgia Pole, locking down as much space as they can. T5 doing the same thing, but over here on the western side. And that compound that the Expendables just took is now on the edge. Not a terrible spot by any means, but they would have loved to be fed a little bit. We will not get that Zaki zone, unfortunately. It could have gone up there. The water shift doesn't happen until this zone, but PUBG gods were unkind to us today. No Zaki zone for us. And so we instead get a zone that, again, on Erangel, played out very often. Not as often as other zones, but still. This is a zone that is relatively formulaic until we enter the later stages of the game, where it just becomes a bit more of a terrain fight. Sometimes you go towards that field as well, just to the north of North Georgia, and you end up, I mean, just taking some bloody team fights in and amongst those ridges. We're not there just yet. Long way to go. Bleed find themselves in that pancake as well. Not much for them to do other than just wait, see what the circle does, see what comes their way. In fact, that's the case for a lot of teams. This next circle dictates quite a bit.
Forest is a very interesting one today as well. Saw sparks of their aggression, team play. It's very, very fun team to watch. And the same could be said about Cerberus. Now, they're the ones keeping Team Bliss out of the circle itself. Monty tried to put a few pot shots onto the players of Cerberus, but nothing's hitting quite yet. So, in Team Bliss, they're a team that's okay to take their point at their time. And I think this really encapsulates of what 𝐏𝐿 as a region is. Take your time, but also taking your time doesn't mean that we are taking it easy. It means that it just gives us a lot more time to really put in that firepower and that pressure. And speaking of, it's going to be Akita and Monty onto their vehicles. just trying to get onto the site itself. And what's more important is like leaving that one player in the backside. Now, 𝐏𝐷𝐀𝐋 put a lot of pressure and damage onto 𝐏𝐷𝐻, and he goes down. He eats too much damage from that nade. Inside all the backside, finds the low Z, knocks him down. Beautifully done, but his teammates need to be picked up.
Monty doing his best to recover, so is Insight, but now look, FW wanting to get involved in this. This is a perfect third-party opportunity for them. Cerberus combined, they take down Team Bliss. That breach was not successful, and FW will happily claim a couple free kill steals. Cerberus go down to just 𝐏𝐷𝐀𝐋. 𝐏𝐷𝐻 alone in that shack, acted as the perfect bait. And Bliss might not have fallen for that bait, but they thought he was weaker than he was. He steps out of that shack and gets 2. That initial pre-grenade got 𝐾𝐿 down to 5 HP, made 𝐏𝐷𝐻's job so much easier. And AGG is now stepping out as well, looking for a couple freebies, but most of the kills on the Cerberus Bliss fight have already escaped everyone's grasp. A very quick play by Bliss just didn't work out. Cerberus, though, they also suffer heavy losses. Could have been a good game from them. No longer. 𝐷𝐀𝐋 in his car. Now behind his car, almost certain to lose those tires. He'll try and res 𝐏𝐷𝐻. Well, actually, maybe not. AGG have far too much control over 𝐏𝐷𝐻's shack. I'm pretty sure this is just going to be 𝐷𝐀𝐋 sending it to a central spot and trying to bunker down for some placement points.
Yeah. AGG's played this terrain very well, honestly. They've just been waiting for these players just pop their heads forward. Pop here. I think he was to try and end that pick-off in the end, but it's going to be T5 toe-to-toe against Forest this time around, but it's Forest that puts in the damage onto Ranger X. Trying to see where they can just sort of peep out, finding the right possible angle to hold as T5 just decides, okay, that's fine. Let's just go straight to our teammates here, reconvene. Very aggressive if you think about it.
Yeah, they still have to deal with 𝐏𝐷𝐻, don't they? Or,
I'm surprised he survived this long. At least still waiting.
Yeah, I mean...
Okay, he's gone now.
Well, they still got to deal with 𝐷𝐀𝐋 is what I meant, but I think he's not even going to go anywhere near AGG. He's just going to wrap towards the east or something like that and try and find somewhere again to bunker down. So maybe not that much of a problem for AGG.
Oh, yeah.
Cerberus, though, 6th place. It's not ideal for them. Their expectations would be first or bust. So there's a lot more work for them to do to try and figure out how they want to play this lobby. I feel like they haven't looked super comfortable when we've seen them in these games. Again, I've been waiting for that game from Cerberus where they look in control, and I feel like in a lot of these games they haven't looked in control. They've looked like they are at the mercy of their environment instead of kind of dictating what happens around them. But still plenty of time for them to warm up into it. Day Trade make that push, but it's off the back of the blue. FW choosing to back out of this one.
Day Trade has to play inside of the zone as well, and FW are going to be happy to be able to just rush forward inside. Now, in this situation, it's going to be hard for them. If the longer they wait, the harder it is to get into the circle. It's going to be one of the biggest fears I have for Day Trade, with Taratal all the way back inside of the circle itself. Now, circle will be coming toward the EA players. They do have a nice terrain to play with, but all eyes are onto the screen right now, onto Forest and as well as FW here. Still on this very, very prolonged fight. This two-way, excuse me, against FW and AGG. 𝐿 has to be pushing all the way back a bit more. They can't take up as much space as they want to, as Tycon happy to take up Banana 1. Nearly does, finally in the end, as fights and skirmishes are happening on the other end as well between Bleed and Day Trade. There's too many players trying to rotate into the circle from the northern side, and this is the result of that as FW goes down, unfortunately, to two different teams, excuse me.
FW put themselves in positions to deal with Day Trade, but those positions were completely exposed to AGG, not accounting for that team. Khan, one tap on the mouse, and down goes KM99. Nice position for Buram. This could end up being a very fantastic game from them. The push towards E Arena isn't that bad as well. They've just got to play as a team almost perfectly. We used to call this knife in our teams. I don't know what the pro players call this little ridge now. Spear, maybe? I'm not quite sure. Either way, it's an iconic piece of terrain. It's fun to fight around on either side as well. Can be quite hectic if you allow a team like Forest to have control over that western side. There's a lot of low ground angles that can mess with fights on that ridge, but here we go. Trick straight towards the Expendables. They breach this compound. Trick is alone to defend it. He's done well to get one. One more grenade in his back pocket. One smoke to deal with. Plenty of meds as well. But a lot of pressure. Down goes Duck by Thanadol from the blue. Just a quick spray onto Sir T. He is so deep in this blue. They were absolutely not expecting that. The trade has to come in from Tycon, and it does. Now Nurans and Flash look back towards Tycon's direction. He's playing that tree. Flash has that left side angle, and they combine to take down Tycon. It's looking better now for Day Trade.
This is that. Oh my goodness. I was keeping an eye onto Thanadol just now. He was inside the circle for so long, and he took full advantage of that, thinking that you're safe because the blue zone is behind you. Regardless, Thanadol does go down to the blue zone, but not before he had put all that damage into the other team. Now Norin's trying his best to just really push up against the AGG. AGG has done really good at holding down the line here, but Zest will eventually go down. Flash, he has been phenomenal for this team. I would say the last final man keeping the team alive and prolonging them, and he's putting a little bit more impact this game. So it's just him and his teammate Norins here. But regardless of the only 2 man, they've already got 6 kills.
That's a good effort from them so far. Survives for quite some time, but more work to do. I'm looking for their opportunity to get involved in this zone. They won't want to be stuck down here on the south side for too long. Getting itchy trigger fingers. Opportunities have yet to open themselves up. eArena is... They've slowly moved themselves up this ridgeline. They were in the middle of it before, then they were halfway to the top a couple circles ago, and now they're at the top. Are they happy with their choices? Are they happy with their position? Honestly, it's probably the fact that they've had no other choice. If they stay in the middle, if they stay too far south, they open themselves up to Forest and Breweram. So they've had no choice but to push all the way up to the top here and play in these high ground ridges. Smokes are plenty though. And they need these smokes if they're going to have any chance at surviving here. These smokes allow them to take fights. This rock is crucial as well. I mean, this is just eArena having to expend all of their resources to survive.
Rossiter as well had a pretty good game today from T5. And they're still maintaining this momentum of being able to survive all the way to these last few stages. Regardless, Brum United, they have a nice little area to play with, but eyes on Flash. He puts in so much damage onto TE, and he rushes up forward, but Day Trade will go down eventually, unable to hold on against the many bullets coming at them. T5 this time push their attention to TE. AGG on one end does go down. EA looking a lot better than they did this last few games this time around. And T5 here right now, they're okay with just holding down the area, but North not done yet. They need to get inside of the circle. That's going to be the problem, as Forest will find Ranger X. That's a big pick-off if you think about it, because he's been giving the most impact out of his team today.
Yeah, Ranger X was on the flank. Almost looked like he DC'd from my point of view. He was stood there very still, but either way, that is the anchor taken down, the flank taken down, the expendables fall as well. It was only a matter of time for them. They found themselves in a very rough spot on that hillside. eArena now allowed a lot of freedom. This is what they were playing for. UNQ steps up, Baron not expecting it. The flush comes in as well. 2 members up for TMP. He's not looking to his right though, and that's what's going to cost him. KM99 gets that, and he's an immediate flush from Olympus with that grenade. Great teamwork so far from Forest, but it needs to be better than T5, and it's not. Padampong, Rossiter, they combine. Down goes Forest. We're into our top 4.
TMP with only 1 player left alive. But look at his positioning. He is way in between 2 different players. I think he's just sort of proning, waiting for the right time. Perhaps he'll be able to get lucky with maybe 2 pickoffs. But for now, it's going to be Dumasti. Have all eyes onto EA. Tigger takes a big chunk of damage and goes down. What a shot. Answers back though, but they must be happy to go for that reposition. And he's just back to doing what he does best. Putting in that pressure, putting in those bullets, making sure that the members of EA eventually will dwindle down in terms of their resources and their HP, and that his teammates can slowly just kind of collapse on them. But it's going to be T5 rushing forward. Khan as well as Konaxi very happy to just wait for these teams just push into them. Eyes wide open as T5 gets eliminated. Buram United, they look good.
It's so unfortunate that Khan falls to that grenade, because he might now go out, weakening Buram, unless Konaxi has something to say about it. Starts to push over. I mean, eArena, they seem pretty preoccupied with Megalos right now, so that gives an opportunity for Konaxi to get that res. And Megalos is on a mission of his own. 1 down on eArena. A little bit of LOS up against Buram. A 1v3 in his future, but it's not good enough. He gets 2 on the side of eArena, opens this up for the taking for Buram. A very strong man advantage, a very strong position, up to 5 kills. I do not see this falling out of Buram's hands.
Yeah, there ain't no way they lose this. Should be quite easy. Tigger and Lyrics, they have no way of picking up like Ziggsy, excuse me. As they rush forward, nade. Yeti is not even concerned. He just rushes up forwards and he still finds one. Larry's all alone here, 15 HP, but he still wins it! What an incredible chicken dinner by this team!
They earned it, didn't they? Sat there on the south side of that ridgeline, and it mostly came to them. I mean, a fantastic win for Buriram, and they need it. Look at all the coaching staff coming to the room as well.
Dude,
this is a...
he had 15 HP!
I mean, the ball's on Eddie, what can you say? Bigger than anyone else's, and it's good to see. I mean, Buriram need that kind of confidence. They need a win like this. They need, honestly, Buriram might need a bigger win. This is a team that we know can hit that 20 kill number if it comes to it, but haven't done it so far, but still, wins like this are very important for this team. And with the addition of Dynasty into this roster, I mean, it's looking like it's made them stronger, right? I talked previously about how Nawadra and Dynasty basically swapped rosters and how Buriram have come off seemingly much better. QC down in the bottom of the leaderboard, Buriram now fighting towards the top.
You know, sometimes people think like, oh, okay, well, you have this player and the player does better, means that you have basically lost something. But sometimes it's all about that chemistry as well. It just possibly, it just suits the way that Dynasty as well as how the team wanted to play. And that's why they came up on top in this situation. Now, coming back to that fight just now, I think I'm really liking the fact that for Dynasty, I got so excited for him because this is a player that is able to just walk past a nade, walk past utility, and just shoot people in the face. It comes down to that very basic fundamental that PUBG is still a shooter game. You get shot by a bullet, you go down. And because he's able to understand this, he's not letting anything stop him from understanding that. Doesn't matter how much HP he has, so long as the bullet hits the face, he knows he's gonna win it, and he does.
Yeah, it's sometimes it's an aimer's game, you know. Sometimes it's whoever's got the better aim wins, and in that case, it definitely was. He also took a very big peek on that right side of the tree, a peek that takes full advantage of Peek's advantage, a peek that takes full advantage of the fact that Eddie's not moving. He's ready to take that peek, and the Zizzy, I believe it was the last player in E-Arena. He's running, right? So he's at a timing disadvantage when it comes to taking that 1 versus 1. So well done from Buriram. Very well-deserved win. Everyone did kind of tear themselves up on the north here. This was absolute chaos. Buriram not ever able to really get involved in any of it. They obviously would have loved to take more fights here. They would have loved to be more active. Khan probably got the most action out of all the members of Buriram with 3 of T5 to deal with, unfortunately forced to the nade. And yeah, I mean, just look at this from Eddie. Really nice peek. Zizzy's running, Eddie is not. Zizzy's ready to take that peek, or Eddie is ready to take that peek. Zizzy just can't do much about it. So yeah, fantastically played.
I'm still in disbelief. There is no way he just rushes up, shoots someone in the face, and then just does it again at 15 HP. Like, at that point, you sort of like realize it's come down to that gamer sense. You just turn off your brain and think, what is the most easiest thing to do? Shoot.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
It's instinct, right? Like, you have that tree in front of you, not to overanalyze it, right? But you have that tree in front of you. I think for a little bit as well, when he peeked the left side of that tree, he saw that Zizzy was running, and so he's even more confident now to take a right eye peek, which is the most advantageous peek in PUBG, considering that Eddie's not moving. He's got his gun up quicker than Zizzy does, and yeah, it's an easy peek. Even on 15 HP, you can get 4 or 5 bullets off on your opponent quicker than they can get their gun up and ready to shoot you, right? So yeah, it's instinctual in that moment, and yeah, easy as.
It's very, very... I think we can say he was locked in. He knew what he wanted in that moment. And then sometimes... Yeah, it's that flow state. Because sometimes you can sort of like figure out what you want or what's going to happen in that next moment. And you sort of it just suddenly happens. And that's exactly what I expected to see from that team itself. Now, Buriram United, I think what's really exciting is the fact that we are finally seeing them back again as well. I think for a while now, we haven't been able to see that. And to see them up here is the same feeling I had watching Team Bliss as well. It's very awesome. Now, coming here is going to be Yeti here with our MVP. With 4 kills. And I think in this situation for Buriram United, yeah, we have an MVP, right? But it felt like every single member in the team has really pulled their weight in this particular match.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate that they couldn't really get involved in all the fights on the north. They were stuck down there on the south, because if they were able to get involved on the north, then this would have been a high kill game for Buriram. This would have been every player basically fighting for that MVP position. But Eddie, in the end, he was the one close up. He was the one that made that push. And of course, he's the MVP. He got